San Francisco. This is 95.7 The Game.
All right, good morning, everyone. A little bit of a special edition of Warriors this week, a solo edition of Warriors this week. But don't worry, just like Golden State, we're going to keep on winning. Evan Giddings got you for the next 3 hours here on 95.7 The Game. Steven Risotto, my guy behind the glass, is going to be helping you out. We're going to be doing a little bit of a different show today. Again, one voice, and we're going to be breaking down the Warriors over this past week, and really, I would say over the past couple of weeks, because they have been as fun as any team in the association to watch. They've been playing great basketball, having won their past 11 games with Jimmy Butler. This is a Warriors team that's beaten, over the last 11 teams by an average of 15.5 points per game. They play the New York Knicks, a 42-win squad without one of their best players in Jalen Brunson later on today at 5:30 from Chase Center. And we got a Curry interview coming up that we're going to replay. We got Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle, covers the Warriors and is on the beat, has been for the last year and a half, coming up at 11 a.m. And we're going to get into a few things. I got some thoughts about the Warriors in regards to Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry, that sort of dynamic. I want to also talk a little bit about Curry's 4,000 threes. I want to compare the 2022 to the 2025 team. Obviously, the prior one won a championship. This one is trying to win a championship. And as right now, they stand in 6th place in the Western Conference as they enter tonight, 10 games above 500, the high water mark of the 24-25 season. They're 3 games back of the Houston Rockets, and now after last night's loss to the Nuggets, the Los Angeles Lakers. They're also a half game up on the Minnesota Timberwolves and 1.5 games up on the 8th seed. Pretty much have set the floor at the 9, or at the 8th seed, I should say, with Sacramento staring up at pretty much everyone and their season being somewhat in the doldrums. But where I want to start today is this. I've really been trying to just, I don't know if it's whittled down or define just how I feel about the Jimmy Butler trade. And I decided to do a little bit of research. So, Pasta, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to ask, where does this trade rank among midseason deals, right? If you want to look at it from a Bay Area perspective, the one that's always kind of caught my eye as of late would be the Christian McCaffrey trade for the San Francisco 49ers. I think that one was obviously immediately impactful. It was one that, looking back on it, was a fantastic deal. They basically gave up a second-round pick because of comps and all the rest you want to throw in there. They did not lose a game up until the NFC Championship. But the one wrinkle in that is that also in the middle of Christian McCaffrey's impact on the Niners, they found Brock Purdy. A couple of weeks later, after McCaffrey comes in, Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt, Brock steps in and helps elevate that team to a different level. And so the combination of them, to me, the trade deadline, but also the emergence of Purdy, is really what propelled that season into, what I think a lot of people were hoping could be a Super Bowl season up until Brock got hurt in Philadelphia. That's why this trade to me seems, it's almost crazy to think about, because, and if anybody before my time, was born in 1994, for the last 30 years I've been watching sports, and that's what I have to compare it to. The most impactful trades of my lifetime, mid-season, not over the summer, not early in the, but mid-season. When I'm thinking about Jimmy Butler and where this Warriors team was, they've won 13 of 15. That's one better than the 12 and 3 mark that they had at the beginning of this season. This was a group that was right around 500. That was, I think, destined for the 10 seed. And destined for a season that was not really going anywhere. I think if Jimmy Butler is not on the Warriors at this point, they stand pat. We could may well be talking about shutting down Steph, or what are they going to do with Curry in the remainder of his career. But now he's happy. He's flying high. He just broke 4,000 threes for his career. He's shooting the heck out of the basketball. Although he only had 11 points in the win against Sacramento the other night, he's playing very well. Looks like he's not just 37 years old, because he just turned that yesterday, and happy birthday to him. But he's playing awesome. And Jimmy's a big reason why everyone in this team is playing fantastic. So in terms of the greatest midseason trades of all time, for the Bay Area, I think Christian McCaffrey is one that automatically comes to mind as of late. But on the NBA court, in my lifetime, there's really only a couple that I can even think of that brought the immediate returns to a team. And 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors this week from 9 to noon every single Saturday. Dan Devone's going to be back with us next week. But there's really only a couple that I can think of. And so I started doing some homework. I started thinking about, all right, what kind of trade has gotten a team up off the canvas and propelled them to a long, healthy postseason run? You know, I don't know much about the Mark Aguirre, Adrian Dantley trade for the Detroit Pistons in 1989. That obviously got them to a championship when they won back-to-back, the Bad Boys did. In 95, Clyde Drexler to the Houston Rockets helped propel them to a championship. But that also had a little bit of a wrinkle because Drexler was obviously a player that helped them get over the hump in the postseason, but they kind of finished that season out 500. And a big reason was Hakeem Olajuwon was injured and missed a lot of time. So you didn't really get to see what they were at full strength up until the playoffs. Ironically, the Rockets are the lowest seed to have ever won an NBA championship. They did it from the 6, which is something that the Golden State Warriors now in 2025 might have to do. But for teams that were struggling, again, teams that were, like their seasons were going nowhere. The Rockets were playing 2 out of 3 basketball. You know, the Pistons were playing really good basketball. You fast forward to 2004, Rasheed Wallace comes over to the Pistons from the Portland Trailblazers. You know, that was a Pistons team that had action that year and that turned out to be just one piece away. They went 12-3 in the first 15 games of Rasheed Wallace's tenure in Detroit, games that he was active for. They obviously go on to beat the Los Angeles Lakers and win the championship. The other trade to me that I can think of, because while PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, for the Dallas Mavericks last year, like those two guys helped get them into a place where they could make a run to the finals. Quietly, someone like Derek White moving from San Antonio to Boston in 2022. He ended up being a massive boost to a team that was around 500 come New Year and around the deadline was not looking great, but was a better team. He helped take them into a different direction and helped them make a run at the finals, where obviously they lost to the Warriors. But those aren't star players. You know, even one that flew under the radar that I forgot about was in 2014-15, the year the Warriors won their first championship. J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert got traded from, I think it was New York, to Cleveland. And that team, once they got LeBron back, I believe won 10 or 11 in a row with those two guys. But again, that's multiple players. Those are role players. Those aren't superstar caliber talents the way that Jimmy Butler is. The only one that I can even remotely think of that comes close to that would be when the Lakers traded for Pau Gasol in 2008 from the Memphis Grizzlies. Or, yeah, I think they were in Memphis at the time. If not, they were in Vancouver. But the Grizzlies franchise. The Lakers won 13 of their first 14 games that season after the deadline with Pau Gasol in 2008. And he helped them get to the finals, where eventually they lost in 6 games to the Boston Celtics. That was the first year of KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen. That's the only trade that I can think of. And that's why, as I'm going back, again, through my lifetime, the instant return on investment, which, by the way, I also think there's parallels between Butler and Gasol, because both teams did not have to give up that much. I believe the Lakers returned his younger brother, Marc Gasol, which ended up being the biggest piece of that trade. For Jimmy Butler, it was Andrew Wiggins, who is a champion. And for the last 5 seasons, I think has really made an imprint on Warriors culture, their franchise. Was a massive piece, a second best player in a title team. And a top 10 protected pick. That's it. You know, Kyle Anderson, Dennis Schroeder, obviously were involved in the deal. But it was essentially a Wiggins for Butler trade, straight up with one first-round pick that the Warriors are not looking like they're going to get because they've been so damn good moving out of the top 10, and their season looks like it's headed to the playoffs. In terms of instant return, I cannot think of a better midseason trade in the NBA since Pau Gasol was traded in 2008 from the Grizzlies to the Lakers. Like, that's the kind of immediate impact that Jimmy Butler has had on Golden State. Again, they have won with him in the lineup 13 of 14 games. The one game that he did not play against Philadelphia, they lost. They have won 11 in a row since he's been on the floor. That's even one better than the Pau Gasol deal because the immediate returns on that trade was 13 and 14 in his first 14 games. So it's been right at that point. Like Jimmy Butler has had as much impact on the Warriors, if not more, I would argue, because that Lakers team was also in a better position at the point in which they traded for Gasol. That was a team that had legitimate title aspirations and needed one piece to get over the top. That was not a team that I think, like the Warriors, may have missed the playoffs entirely. Jimmy Butler has completely resuscitated the Golden State Warriors. And that's why, and again, if people want to call in and get in on the conversation, 888-957-9570 is the number. Again, we got Steph Curry in that replay coming up at 10:30. Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle is going to join us at 11 o'clock. I got a whole host of things I want to get to here today. But where I want to start is, has there been a more impactful midseason trade in recent memory than Jimmy Butler III? I would argue there hasn't. And I don't think there's been one since 2008 when the Lakers acquired Pau Gasol. That's how big, how great this deal at the deadline has been for Golden State. And again, I don't know if it was by luck because they wanted Kevin Durant and that deal obviously fell through. I don't know if it's because of design, because they had to wait to ship Schroeder's contract because there was a wrinkle in the deal that he could not be traded until 24 hours before the deadline. I don't know if it was something that they had planned, again, all along, that Jimmy Butler was the target from the summer until now, and they were just waiting for that price to come down to a point where they were comfortable. I don't know if Steph Curry or Steve Kerr believed that Jimmy Butler was going to have this kind of immediate impact, especially with the way that things ended in Miami. He was a wild card. I certainly didn't see this coming. And it's been nothing but aces that have come up for Golden State since Jimmy Butler got here. And so again, Pau Gasol delivered 13 wins of 14 the first time that he was traded to Los Angeles. Jimmy Butler has helped deliver 13 wins in his first 14 games that he has played in Golden State. And I certainly hope that Golden State's season can end somewhere close to where the Lakers did, because that Los Angeles team ended up getting to the finals, though they ended up losing. And to me, if the Warriors somehow in the future, and this is way down the line, if that team gets to the NBA Finals, I think it's going to be hard, very difficult for us not to look at this as one of the best midseason deals in NBA history, and especially since the turn of the millennium. Again, Gasol is the most recent one that I can think of. Obviously, Rasheed Wallace was the missing piece for a title team in 2004 for the Pistons. People have brought up Clyde Drexler in 1995, Mark Aguirre for Adrian Dantley in 1989. These are the kinds of names and seasons that so far, to me, that it's fair to put Butler in, because that's the kind of winning, the impact on winning that he has had thus far, I believe. And I just feel like, and again, as we're rolling along here today, you know, the things that Jimmy has done so far, to me, is it's a little bit unquantifiable. Like watching him on the floor, you can see this team, they've gone from the worst free throw shooting team to one of the best free throw shooting teams. They're a team that has certainly dropped their turnovers overall since he's gotten here. But the last 3 games, I do want to remind people, they have been very sloppy with the ball, and could be something that will come back to bite them over these next 3 games if they don't clean it up, because the Knicks are a good team, even without Brunson. And obviously Denver on Monday and Milwaukee on Tuesday, back-to-back games, are good teams that are looming. And the Warriors have to continue to take care of the basketball. But what he does to me, Butler, it's just so obvious as a stabilizing force. You know, Jimmy Butler is someone that quite clearly does not care about stats. He took 5 shots in the win against Sacramento. And I love the way that he's almost able to kind of map out a game. The tempo which he plays fluctuates, but he's the one that knows when and which button to press. And I think you saw that between, again, the weekend, last weekend, before the last time we talked, that Saturday victory against Detroit at home, the first game off that 5-game roadie, which they went 4-1. To me, that was an excellent example of Jimmy having the understanding of when and where to press the button. That game was a physical dogfight. The Pistons are a team that fouls more than anybody in the NBA. And the Warriors' physicality, their toughness was absolutely tested. And Jimmy Butler III, though Draymond's a dog, and you're looking at Kevon Looney has been in certainly a lot of foxholes. I think Gary Payton II is a tough player, and he's battle tested as a champion. Jimmy Butler is the toughest player on that team. Jimmy Butler III is the most physical player, I believe, on that team. And they just got one more who I believe has the ability to play tough, to play physical, and that's Jonathan Kaminga. But due to his inexperience, only being in his young 20s, and Jimmy Butler's experience as a vet, particularly in the postseason, to me, he embodies he gives them a level of toughness that was not previously there. And that was on full display against Detroit, especially in the third quarter when he goes for 15 points, just bullies his way to the free throw line. But then, a couple of games later, and even against Portland to some extent, he didn't have to do that. Butler, it almost like he surveys the game, he surveys the landscape. I don't know if he's reading scouting reports, what he's doing leading up until this, during shoot-around, during his warm-up, whatever he does to get himself right, for example, today against the Knicks. But he has an understanding of what he needs to do to help this team win. And if that shoot the ball 5 times and score 7 points, then he's going to do that because he don't give a damn about stats. That's the only reason why I thought it was really interesting that on Monday against Portland, remember when Steve Kerr told him to take the last second shot and he hit it at the buzzer, Jimmy Butler was looking at the bench because he was fully ready and willing to take that turnover because Jimmy does not care about stats. The only thing that Jimmy Butler III appears to care about, and it's one of the reasons why I think he's so quickly ingratiated himself with not just the Warriors and the team, but I think also the fan base, is because he only cares about winning. He only cares about winning. And I think it's been that way across his career. Jimmy Butler III is a player that I think is a great symbol for winning players or players that are defined as winners without championships. And I think that because titles mean everything, especially nowadays, and if you don't have a ring, you're a loser. If you choke in the playoffs, it ends up defining you. Well, not even if you choke in the playoffs, but just if you lose in the postseason, it feels like it ends up defining who you are as a player, even though context in a lot of these cases absolutely matters. Jimmy Butler III is a winner. Everyone has called him that on the Warriors, and I believe it's true. Just because he doesn't have a ring doesn't mean he's not a winner. And you've seen that, again, the first 14 games that he has been available for, they have won 13 of them. And the one loss they had to Dallas, it took a 42-piece from Kyrie Irving, RIP to his season, unfortunately. I hope he gets back soon. And then it came down to the wire. And Butler was, remember, a charge into a block and an and one away from maybe winning that basketball game. That's how close the Warriors have been to a perfect start since Jimmy Butler has gotten to Golden State. And I understand that their level of competition has not been necessarily high. That's why I think these 3 games are going to tell us. And by the end of Tuesday night, to me, I will have an answer for you. The next time we talk on Warriors This Week, every single Saturday from 9 to noon, Evan Giddings in today, rolling solo today. Dan Devone's going to be back next week, but I still got Steven Risotto with me here in the 95.7 The Game studios. By next week, by the time that Dan Devone returns to this program here, I will have an answer for you on whether I consider the Golden State Warriors contenders, legitimate championship contenders. That's a title that I have reserved, and it's been because of the level of teams that they've played and beaten. To me, I think their best win, ironically, has come against the team they play tonight, and that's the New York Knicks. I know that Karl Anthony Towns did not play in that game at the Garden during their last road trip. Jalen Brunson was available, who's not tonight. So you're basically swapping them for each other. But they were down, I think, by 8 at half. I thought it was a gutsy win. And the Warriors are also now getting a little bit healthier because they're going to have Jonathan Kaminga, who's come back. And I do want to spend a lot of time talking about him and where I think he fits as far as a puzzle piece to what I believe can be an even better version of Golden State. So I want to save that for a little bit. But to me, that win at New York has been the best so far of the Jimmy Butler era. And to be fair, if you're a little bit of a pragmatic person, you could poke a hole in it if you want. Tonight, if they win, you could poke a hole in it if you want. Brandon Pajemski's unavailable for tonight. That's something we do know. But Kaminga is going to be active. I think my guess is that he would play more than 20 minutes, which is what he got against Sacramento, but you never can tell, especially with the 31-game absence that he suffered due to a high ankle sprain all the way back on January 4th. But the Warriors, I think, displayed a level of toughness that also was required for them to beat Detroit. That's another game you could say has been their best. And neither of those two teams I would consider contenders, legitimate championship threats. In my mind right now, if we're looking at the landscape of the National Basketball Association, it is three squads that to me are the favorites. It is Cleveland, it is Boston, and it is OKC. And I know that the Thunder are a team that a lot of people don't like to win it all just because of their lack of experience, or maybe they're working their way towards whatever they become in the near future, which I think is going to be scary. But to me, what they've done so far, their resume speaks for itself. The next level of teams, the teams that are trying to move into what I believe is, again, a contender status, the Warriors are in there. The Warriors are absolutely a part of the next cut. To me, in the West, it's Denver, it's Los Angeles, even though they've lost 4 in a row. I think at full strength, if they get healthy, that's a very dangerous team that could make a run. The Warriors are in there, and depending on how they continue to play, I think I would have to consider Minnesota also a team in the next level of cuts. To me, Memphis doesn't quite have it. There's just something about that team that scares me a little bit come postseason time. And it's not just because they've lost to the Warriors, but they just seem a little, I don't know if the word is, juvenile. I don't know if the word is not buttoned up. Well, it's not one word, but they don't feel buttoned up to me, the Memphis Grizzlies. The Houston Rockets, I think, are still a year away, and maybe from being a year away. I think they're a superstar away. And that's why if I'm looking at the Warriors too against the West, their top tier talent, it matches up. Steph, Jimmy, and if you want to put Draymond or Kaminga in there, we can throw them in there. But to me, when in the playoffs, it comes down to your dudes, and the Warriors legitimately have 2 of them. That's a tandem I'm putting up against Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. I think Jokic is the best player on the planet and is going to be the best player in any series. But combine Steph and Jimmy against Jokic and Jamal, I'll take my chances. Against LeBron and Luka, again, those are 2 massively star-talented players. And Luka just came off of basically dragging a Mavericks team, not dragging, but propelling a Dallas team to the NBA Finals. But that's a tandem I'm willing to send Steph and Jimmy and go toe-to-toe with. Minnesota doesn't have that second, that co-star for Anthony Edwards. But to me, the sum of their parts is where they become scary, especially because I also think that they have an ability to defend at a really high level. I mean, that to me is what made them scary last year. And also the fact that, to me, I think that the biggest threat right now to Golden State would be Denver. And they haven't beaten them since the 2022 playoffs when they knocked them out in the first round. They're literally 0 for their last 7 against the Denver Nuggets. So that's the team that scares me the most in regards to Golden State. But Minnesota is a team that has had Denver's number. That's their kryptonite. I don't know who the Warriors' kryptonite is. If I had to bet, I would say it's the Nuggets. But Minnesota is a team that has shown that they can not only beat them in a postseason series, win a Game 7 down by 20, but also this season they've had success against them. So I have to consider Minnesota a team that is scary enough in the second cut. To me, in the West, OKC, who, by the way, already locked up a postseason spot, and they're on pace for like 66 wins. To me, they're the favorites, and then from there, Golden State is in the next category. But I believe that over these next 3 games, we're going to find, people out there, and again, 888-957-9570 is the number. If people believe that the Warriors can beat OKC in a 7-game series, I understand. But to me, I'm not willing to put them in the contending category yet just because I haven't seen them do it against the best. And to me, really, that Denver game is where I'm going to measure just how far I think the Warriors can go. I think they're a team that has action. It would not surprise me whatsoever if this team is able to make a deep postseason run. And the fact that Jimmy Butler has completely flip-flopped not only the season, but the play of just about every single player on this team, including the one that just got back, Jonathan Kaminga, who I thought looked awesome. in their first game against Sacramento. He's someone that makes me feel like if in fast forward 2 months from now, right, March 15th, let's fast forward to June 15th. If the Warriors are in the midst of the NBA Finals, we're trying to wrap up a fifth championship for Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, I could see it. I could see it. And it's because of the kind of confidence and energy that they seem to be playing with relatively consistently every single night. And again, that's why, as we kind of wrap up our first segment on Warriors this week, and again, 888-957-9570 is the number. I got some text messages I want to get to as well. Jimmy Butler is the most impactful trade I've seen in my lifetime since 2008 when the Lakers got Pau Gasol. That's the kind of impact that he's immediately had. And yeah, the 925 is bringing up Rasheed Wallace. That's something that I definitely threw in the bin, but that was a little bit earlier in 2004. The 650, Jimmy Butler's impact is quantifiable. Free throws, free throw percentages. Yeah, I mean, all right. That one, I'm not going to lie. I don't believe that the Warriors were a bad team at shooting free throws. I believe they had bad free throw shooting players. Like, Jimmy Butler is taking a lot of free throws now. Does that mean that all of a sudden the Warriors are a great free throw shooting team? No, I think they just have a couple of really good free throw shooters, and that's going to take a lot of them. I wonder if Kaminga is going to be someone that gets back into the 70s. Or because if he shoots close to 60% like he did at the beginning of the season, are we going to label the Warriors a bad free throw shooting team again? No, to me, that's just one player. Steph's minutes. Yeah, I think Steph Curry, how he's played is probably the biggest impact that Jimmy Butler's had on this team. And also Steph, there's a parallel between them and a conversation that's happening around the NBA that I want to dig into on the other side. This idea of value, most valuable. I got some thoughts on it as we move forward here on Warriors this week. Evan Giddings flying solo alongside my guy Steven Risotto here on 95.7 The Game. We're taking your calls, taking your texts, checking on the YouTube chat powered by First Door Cal Credit Union during the break as well. Hop in there. You can find us all here at 95.7 The Game. We'll be back after this on Warriors This Week.
Spring into action at Valvoline Instant Oil Change.
I think they're resetting the sound system. That may have something to do with the fire alarm. We don't have public address announcements, no music. Butler goes back door, down the lane, one-hander, banked it in. He got fouled as well. Again, putting on the brakes.
Wow, now that you say it, it's actually kind of nice.
Yeah, it is.
It's just basketball.
It's just basketball, baby.
Wow.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
All right, Evan Giddings with you here, flying solo dolo on a Saturday morning. Good morning to everyone out there on the roadways. If you're watching at home, if you're checking us out on YouTube and Twitch, powered by First Shore Cal Credit Union. Evan Giddings, Dan Devone will be back next week. I got Steven Risotto, a.k.a. producer Pasta, with me, flying as a co-star, kind of like Jimmy Butler, Steven. And I want to ask you, before we get to the calls at 888-957-9570, we are going to dig into a little bit more with Steph Curry. We're going to replay his interview with Steiny and Guru coming up at 10:30. Steven's actually got a game for us to play later on in the show that I'm very much looking forward to. Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle is going to join us at 11 o'clock, and he's on the beat, has actually spent, from what I've heard, probably the most time of just about anyone with Jimmy Butler since he's gotten to Golden State. Had a 30-minute sit-down with him for an article that was very good, and you can check that out at the San Francisco Chronicle. But Pasta, before we get to the calls, and I see you out there, 888-957-9570, what has been your favorite part about the Warriors since Jimmy Butler got here?
My answer is going to coexist with your philosophy or your thought that this is the best midseason trade, maybe in NBA history. I am thinking back to the time in the weeks before this trade, and I'm thinking about the reaction that Warriors fans had on these very airwaves about how Jimmy Butler was too old, and they were going to add just yet another old player in his mid-30s to an already aging core. We talked about that. We talked about the drama in Miami, and we played all this sound about how Jimmy Butler said he had no joy playing in Miami. We talked about that. We talked about his contract, and there's all these cons to adding Jimmy Butler, and when the move was made, I don't know how many people were excited about it. I think a lot of people were more excited that they actually did something. And just the way that this has completely changed the narrative. And, there's a caller, Jan in Mountain View, who might be listening. Jan was not for this trade. And then she called in yesterday and she was talking about how excited she was about Jimmy Butler on the Warriors. And I think a lot of fans have the same reaction. And just watching him, be on the court, it just opens everything up for the rest of the offense. It puts guys in their place. Steph Curry, I remember there was the game at Golden One in Sacramento where he was doing everything or trying to do everything, and they had three guys on him, and he was trying to get off a shot, and nobody else was open, and just the ball movement that Steve Kerr had 10 years ago, even 2022, it's back. He hasn't had the Jimmy Butler game yet, the big one, but there's enough postseason resume performances from him on his resume, I should say, that signify he's going to play a major role in the postseason. And we don't need to have that one big Jimmy game because he's already doing a lot to open up opportunities for other guys. So that's my favorite part of watching the Warriors right now, just watching these guys just kind of get settled into the roles they're supposed to be in.
The on-court vibes are what you're talking about.
The on-court vibes, for sure. And
vibes.
Also the idea that he changed people's mind, Evan. Like the way he came in here, and if this isn't the greatest NBA midseason trade ever, it's the greatest one that has had misconceptions about it. Because everybody, I think, thought that Jimmy Butler was, maybe not everybody, that's a stretch.
I think a lot of people did.
A lot of people thought Jimmy Butler was going to come over here. There was going to be a honeymoon period where it was great. Then he was going to cause some trouble. And there was a report that he's spending a lot of time with Draymond and Steph, and he's fitting in very well, and people are looking up to him. Kaminga just called him smart the other night, someone to look up to.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of something that just has changed the minds of so many people and has changed the vibes of the team completely.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's definitely changed a lot of people's minds. What I would say is that I actually do think we're still in the honeymoon period. It's been a longer honeymoon period than I anticipated. It's been quick. It's been high. It has been awesome to watch. But I do think that we're not going to find out whether or not Jimmy Butler is, I don't know, for lack of a better term, trouble until next season, because I think he is completely locked in. is also locked in for $111 million, which is another key part to this too. When he feels like that he is valued and he is taken care of financially, you get the best version of Jimmy Butler. And I cannot wait because to your point, Pasta, about playoff Jimmy, or we haven't seen the big Jimmy game yet. I don't know if we're going to see it until the postseason. And he's someone that reserves his best for the biggest stage. I don't know. Maybe it could be Monday against Denver. It could be Tuesday against Milwaukee. I think that he's someone that understands when he is needed to get points, when he's needed to get buckets, when he's needed to transform into Jimmy Buckets. And so far, I think it's really just been one condensed period. And again, that was the third quarter against the Detroit Pistons. But what's been your favorite part so far of the Jimmy Butler era? 888-957-9570. To Steven's point also, I mentioned in the first segment that I think that it has the potential to be one of the greatest midseason trades, certainly in my lifetime. I can't speak before I had a chance to start watching basketball, the 90s and before. I'm not that old, but again, in my lifetime, Pau Gasol in 2008, Rasheed Wallace in 2004, for lack of better star power, you're looking at J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert in 2015 and Derek White with the Celtics in 2022, even P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford last year with the Mavericks. Those are all deals that brought immediate returns. But in terms of a singular star, I think it's Butler, I think it's Gasol, I think it's Wallace, and it's a very short list. But again, those two trades resulted in title, either appearances or title wins for the Pistons in 2004, and then a runner-up in the finals for the Lakers in 2008. So in many ways, the result of this Warriors season is going to dictate where Butler and this midseason trade ranks in recent memory. All right, let's get out to Burlingame. Talk to my guy. Talk to my guy, Dylan. Dylan, what's up, man? Good morning.
Good morning, Ab. We got a tight race in fantasy this week.
Yes, we do. All right, Dylan, Dylan, if you can for a moment. Dylan and I play in the same fantasy basketball league. Dylan, if I can, Dylan, Wembanyama is undefeated. He has not lost in our fantasy basketball season thus far. Right now, I believe we're tied, Dill. And so may the best man win.
May the best man win. Yeah, that's right. Got faced with some injuries, but I wanted to call in and echo what you've been saying, because I think resuscitation is such a good definition for what Jimmy has brought to the team. And I think it's on two levels, right? Resuscitation for the Warriors players, where he just raises the IQ and their athleticism for everyone on the court, where, like you said, the Kings game the other night, he had 6 points, but everyone with over 10 minutes was in the double digits of points. So I think there's that front, and it's almost like he's raising the Warriors fandom, where I think that there's like 10% of Warriors fans who would have watched the Warriors, whether they're in last place or if they're on the verge of like being 3 games out of third place. But now you have like 50% of Warriors fans that are on the fringe that are getting excited about a potential strong playoff run.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I don't know about you, Dylan. It feels like to me and I know that they're only half game up on Minnesota, who they have the tiebreaker on, but it feels like if the Warriors don't get the 6th seed, in a way, a lot of people might be disappointed. Like that's kind of the floor, it feels like, with the way that they've been playing.
100%. Yeah, and I think we're playing for something now. We're not playing to get in the playoffs and is it the first round, maybe the second round? Now it's like we can make a deep run.
Oh, 100%. Thanks for the call, Dylan. And, well, I would say good luck the rest of this weekend, but I do want to beat him. Again, he has not lost in our fantasy basketball league. This guy's been the Red Auerbach of our league for the first couple seasons. Thank you. No update. No breaking news. No breaking news. Although there is something that around the association, there is something that's caught my eye that I don't know if I want to get into it now, but it is about the Utah Jazz, and I think it's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, you're right, Dylan. Like, it's almost to the point now where if the Warriors get to the playoffs, and let's say, God forbid, they got bounced in the first round, that feels like that would be a disappointment. I don't know, Steven, would you agree that would feel like a disappointment? Because even if, I think Denver would be a really tough matchup, which right now, if we're looking at the standings, is who the Warriors would play in the first round. Yeah, I would love to avoid Denver. I would love to, if they're at full strength, avoid the Lakers, though I think they could perhaps beat them. Like, those two teams, to me, are the matchups in terms of size that in the first round I think could make things really hard on Golden State. But if the Warriors lost to one of those teams, would that be disappointing?
Massive disappointment.
Damn.
Yeah, massive disappointment. I think fans are just way past the idea of, and this is kind of a precursor to one of the things I'm going to bring up in a future segment.
Oh boy,
that you teased, but I think they have to go past the first round to make this a little bit more of a successful season to me is past the first round and a little deeper into the playoffs. I don't think I would be okay with a first round exit.
I got you. 888-957-9570 is the number. Is that kind of where you're at with the Warriors right now? Again, I think this next 3-game stretch is going to be revealing about, I don't know if it's how far they can go, but look, what level of basketball they can summon. Again, they get the New York Knicks tonight. ABC, nationally televised game. Tim Roy's going to have the call for you at 5:30 on 95.7 The Game, as he does, alongside Tom Tolbert for every single game. They got Denver and Milwaukee, but this is a team that has won 11 games in a row with Jimmy Butler. And, our last caller, Dylan, brought this up. Pasta's kind of been talking about it. And so I want to explore this idea of just how valuable Jimmy Butler is. And there's a race going on right now for league MVP, right? It's pretty much a two-man race. I think most people would agree with that. It is Nikola Jokic and it is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And the argument is best player, literal best player, which I think we all identify Nikola Jokic as. He's averaging a triple-double. His team is still pretty damn competitive. And I believe he has the highest win shares per 48, which if you go track MVPs, by the way, I don't want to get too much into analytical talk, but if you go look at the list of MVPs dating back for quite some time since this statistic became a thing, win shares per 48 tracks as the majority of MVPs. If they are number one in that category, they win. Nikola Jokic is number one this season and his plus-minus off the charts, on-off splits off the charts. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is having an unbelievable season. He's the league leader in terms of points, I think around 32 per game. He has one of the longest 20-point consecutive streaks going, not just this season, but I want to say he's moving towards the Kevin Durant kind of range, where it feels like that, I don't know, if he can keep this thing rolling into next season, like he's got a shot to break whatever that all-time record is, because that's how impactful, lethal of a scorer that he is. To the 650's point, the playoffs started today. The Warriors faced the Rockets. They do not actually. The Rockets are fifth. The Rockets are in fifth place. They're 3 games up on Golden State, and they do not have the tiebreaker with the Lakers. So as the Western Conference standings falls right now on Saturday, March 15th, OKC's in first. That, to me, is where Shai comes into play in his MVP case. Memphis is in second via the tiebreaker with Denver, who is in third. Both of those teams are 4 games up on Golden State. The Lakers are fourth. The Rockets are fifth. The Warriors are sixth. And Minnesota right now is seventh. The Clippers are eighth. And the Warriors are half game up on Minnesota and 2 games up clear on the Clippers. But back to the MVP case, because I think it applies to Golden State in this sense. Jokic is the best player on the planet. I think that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the league MVP. And it's because it's just philosophically what I believe. If you're the best player on the best team, and not only just the best team, like they are going to by far and away be the best team in the West. Like Cleveland is 55-10. They got one more victory than the Thunder do, and their winning percentage is slightly better, but they're a bit more staggered. They're a bit more balanced in terms of their hierarchy. Like Donovan Mitchell's the best player on that team, but the gap between him and their second best player, who I think is Evan Mobley, is not nearly as drastic as the gap between Shai and whoever the second best player on that team is. Also, Cleveland hasn't had to deal with the injuries that SGA has had to deal with. Chet Holmgren has only played, I think, 22 games this season. Jalen Williams has missed time. Isaiah Hartenstein has missed time. I just think that SGA has done a little bit more with his surrounding cast. Point being, he's the best player on the best team. Jokic is the best player in the world. Now to the Warriors. I think that Steph is the best player on the Warriors. But with the impact, the immediate impact that Jimmy Butler has had, again, they've won 11 straight games when he's been on the floor. They're 13-1 in the 14 games he's played since they've gotten here. I could make the case he's the MVP of the Warriors. I mean, that's the kind of turnaround, the kind of resuscitation that he has brought and impacted the Warriors with. He has literally defibrillated this season. They were dead. I don't believe that they were headed for the playoffs. Or if they were, it was as a 10 seed and more of a play-in team, and I think they probably would have gotten bounced. And the impact that he's allowed everyone else to feel, not just the Currys, not just the Draymonds, who, oh, by the way, had 23 points against Sacramento, the first time that he's led the Warriors in points since the 2016 Game 7, in which the Warriors unfortunately lost. But Draymond was awesome in that game. He's allowed Draymond to become more offensively minded. He has had an impact on every single player on that team. Whether it is quantifiable or not, I think that Jimmy Butler has a real case as this team's most valuable player. That doesn't mean that he's the best player. Again, Jokic is a better player than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is my league MVP. Steph Curry is the best player on the Golden State Warriors, I think. Jimmy Butler is the most valuable player. And it's because he has instantly stepped onto this roster and made this team a legitimate threat. And it's because of the impact that he's had on every single person, man, 1 through 15 on this team. 888-957-9570 is the number. If you want to call in and tell me I'm crazy, feel free. I got time today. I'm rolling solo. I got Steven Risotto here with us.
And the simple, like, I guess, reasoning to your argument is that if you take Jimmy Butler off the Warriors, where are the Warriors?
Well, they lost to the Sixers, Pasta.
Right.
They lost to the Sixers, who I believe had lost 9 in a row under an absolute dumpster fire.
Exactly. And if you take,
Quentin Grimes.
I think that if you're an MVP candidate, you have to come from a contender. It doesn't matter if you're the best team, or I think you just have to be in the dance somewhere, a contender. Unless you're just absolutely going off for a pretty bad team. I think that's less frequent in basketball, maybe more so frequent in some of the other sports. I'm thinking baseball, where Shohei Ohtani won it with the Angels. But in this case, if you take Jimmy Butler off the Golden State Warriors, where are they at? Probably still trying to stay above water, maybe below the water, underwater. I don't know where they're at. They're just not where they are now. So that's all I know. So I would agree with you.
All right. Well, that's one. Let's see if we can make it two. And I know we do have a couple people calling in, Pasto. So I want to get you racked up. I want to get you on hold. I want to get you in the conversation. Evan Giddings flying solo here on Warriors this week. Dan Devone's going to be back next week. As always, we're here from 9 to noon discussing the Golden State Warriors. And to me, it's, again, I don't want to make this about who's better and, Steph is this. I'm not trying to pit them against each other. Again, it's just from what I've seen. And what I've seen is that Jimmy Butler impacts every single person on this roster. And Steph does too. And if you take him off the team, they're obviously not as good. But I've seen what this team was without Jimmy Butler. They're a 500 basketball team, and that's with Steph Curry. I mean, that's to me the only reason why, like, what Steph has done in the last 15 games, and his numbers have been awesome, despite having a couple of, lowly shooting performances against Portland and Sac. Steph is now, to me, in the conversation for All-NBA again. I wouldn't put him in the MVP race. I don't think he's been their most valuable player. That is a title that, to me, belonged to Jimmy Butler. Again, that doesn't mean that Jimmy is the best player. Listen to what I'm saying. All right. Coach is in Vallejo. Coach, what's going on? Good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Evan. Nice to see you. I'm watching you on YouTube. You're looking good.
My man.
Hey, the biggest impact to me that Jimmy Butler brings to the team, is stability. Cutting down the turnovers. With the ball in his hands, you feel comfortable. You feel the ball's going to be secure. He made one turnover the other night, and I gasped, man. I'm like, Jimmy Butler? But the guy is so secure, we don't have touchdown Draymond and Steph throwing those wild passes all over the place. they're the two biggest culprits is Draymond and Steph. It's not the young guys that are throwing the bad passes and taking the chances. It's Draymond and Steph. But with Jimmy Butler at the hub, I mean, sure, everyone else is playing well around him because the ball is secure. Now, what he does with guys like Kaminga and everything, he recognizes their talents. He's going to make sure that Kaminga is in the position where he can do his thing, one-on-one with anyone, with the lane wide open. He knows Moses Moody is a great spot-up shooter. He's going to suck in the defense, pitches out to Moses Moody. I mean, so this is what Jimmy Butler does, where Draymond takes the risky passes and the home run. Jimmy Butler is solid. He's going for the base hit, the line drive up the middle, okay? So that's what I think is the biggest change with the Warriors. Their turnovers has cut way down, and it's really because the ball is mainly in Jimmy Butler's hands.
I'm with you, Coach. Yeah, I think, and actually that's quietly something that I've been monitoring. Like, Jimmy Butler is, he doesn't give the ball up much. But I do think that the Warriors have played a little more loose over the last 3 games. Like, for example, again, they're 13-2 over 15 games, and I appreciate the call, Coach. Feel free to call back anytime. We love you. After averaging 11.9 turnovers in February, so far in the month of March, they've turned the ball over almost 15 and a half times per game. That's a pretty significant jump. And I'm with you, Coach, that to me, overall, Butler's security has made, just mathematically, if you get more possessions, you get more opportunities to score. And Butler, in addition to not only taking care of the basketball, has, I think, helped, along with Steph, maximized more offensive possessions, more points per possession, whether it's in pick and roll, whether it's with Steph on the floor, whether it's with Steph off the floor. They've just been a more efficient offense. But they are reverting back a little bit, as of late, to a bit of a careless basketball team. That also applies to Jimmy Butler. I think that in the game against Sacramento, and I want to get this correct, Butler had 2 turnovers. You look back at his last few games against Detroit, he had 4 turnovers. That's very un-Jimmy Butler-like. This is a guy that averages about 1.3 turnovers per game. So anything above 1, anything above 0, it seems strange that Butler would be, quote-unquote careless with the basketball by his standards. But the Warriors as a whole have gone from 12 to essentially 15 and a half from February to March. They've committed over the last 4 games 17 and a half turnovers per game. That's a lot, especially when you consider, pardon me, the amount of points that they're giving up to opponents off of that. Over the last 4 games, they have given up 86 points off of turnovers. Now, again, you've played Brooklyn. Detroit's a good opponent. They're a 6 seed, I believe, in the East. They're a playoff team. But Portland and Sacramento, Portland's a feisty squad. That, by the way, was actually one I was spot on about the 11.5, thanks to a late Anthony Simons 3. And then Sacramento is not, in my opinion, a very good basketball team. You haven't been able to take care of the basketball against those squads. And so those 86 points have not hurt you. But tonight against New York, you give up 20 points off turnovers, which is what they did to Sacramento. That might be the difference in a game. You give up 20 points off turnovers to the Denver Nuggets. That very easily could be the difference in that game. Same for Milwaukee. So while Jimmy Butler, I agree, Coach, has done an awesome job of emphasizing ball security as a whole over 15 games, as of late, they have been a bit more careless. And it's not just him. It's been Draymond. It's been Curry. It's been, even to some extent, the other role players on this team. But to me, the area that is going to determine how far they go is ball security, the amount of possessions that they can get. All right, I'm down to the MVP talk. If you want to call in, tell me I'm crazy. Feel free. Let's have a conversation about it. I know I've been a bit off my rocker this morning. I'm all coffeeed up. I got 6 cups of coffee in me. Haven't had a calorie in my system. My fast I'm burning through it right now. 888-957-9570 is the number. I also see you on the text line. I see you on the YouTube chat. Chime in. Let us know what you think. At 10:30, we're going to replace Dining Guru's interview with the chef himself, Steph Curry. I have a lot of thoughts that I want to get to on that. At 11 o'clock, we're going to talk to Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle. As a beat writer for the Warriors, has spent just about every second of this season with that team, knows them inside and out. A good friend of mine, going to talk to him again at 11. Steven Risotto's got a game for us to play at 11:30 that I do not know about, which I'm looking forward to. And we can have a little bit of fun with you, the listeners, as well. All on the other side when we return on 95.7 The Game on Warriors This Week.
Hey, it's Willard and Dibs for Safeway. Enjoy these amazing deals for members, and as always, save up to 20% off week.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you?
Mike Jones! Give me some good news, damn it.
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
Was that Thanos, Steven? Or Guru?
I don't know what I did.
All right, Pasta. Hey, don't worry. You're back there holding us down.
That was the Mac Jones thing from the other day that we never got rid of.
A Mac Jones mashup? You put something together for McCorkle?
Yeah, do you want to hear it?
Yeah,
Sam
let's
Levin
do it.
did.
Okay.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you?
Mike Jones!
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got you. This is a Warriors show. I just kind of was curious of what that soundbite was. By the way, it sounded like he said Mike Jones, not really Mac Jones. I don't know if that was the goal there, Steven, but
He very well might have said Mike Jones. I don't know
Mike
who that
Jones.
is, but we should get Mike Jones on the show.
Yeah, let me know if you can get a hold of him. You know, he's certainly had his heyday. Warriors are in the middle of their heyday, middle of a nice run, 13-2 over the last 15 games. And yes, thank you from our YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. I am going to try and get a sponsor from Big Face Coffee. Now, knowing Jimmy Butler as little as I do, my guess is that I would have to pay him to become sponsored by Big Face Coffee. I love coffee. I am wired right now off of coffee. Pete's is my preference. You know, the Dickinson blend. Love the French roast. Dark particular. The medium and the light, mainly the light ones, Pasta. It keeps going up in terms of caffeine, the lighter you get. So
Are you a big Phil's guy?
Not really. See, I'm not a snob, but I only drink black coffee. So Phil's is good, but I feel like a lot of their drinks are very, I don't know, drawn up. You know, it's like, I don't want to say they're quite Dutch bros or Dutch brothers, but all of those drinks, if you're going there, it's because you're looking for a different variety, a different flavor. You know, just give me the coffee, give me the caffeine, a little bit of, like a hint of French, and I don't know, maybe an occasional press.
See, I have not hit the coffee stage in my life just yet. But everybody tells me that it's coming.
It will. I mean, the other thing about coffee, too, and one of the reasons why I think Jimmy Butler is a massive coffee drinker is because it does have some metabolism qualities. You know, if you're drinking coffee on an empty stomach, obviously you feel like there's this book out there that talks about how the version of yourself that's caffeinated is a different version that is not, because caffeine is a drug. I mean, it's not a lethal drug, obviously, but you are a different version of yourself. And like when I rolled in here today, Pasta, and had no coffee, I was a very different version of myself. I was not ready to do this show. I was ill prepared. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the wherewithal. I didn't have the presence of mind like the Golden State Warriors do on the court, it seems, every time they take it. And you will get there one day, Pasta. I promise you that. All right, from the 707 on the text line, what Draymond does to the defense for everyone else, Jimmy does that for the offense and defense. Yeah, I think that what I've really liked about watching those two play together, and while let me backtrack. I was skeptical a little bit that Butler was going to work as well as it had. Like, I didn't think they were going to go 13-2. I thought he'd make him a better basketball team, but I was a little worried, just because he hadn't played much basketball this year. 35 years old. How much does he have left in the tank? But the one thing that I was not worried about was how he was going to work with Draymond Green off the court. That was not something that concerned me in the slightest. And the reason is, as much as Draymond can be difficult to deal with, as much as Jimmy Butler, to be honest, from what we've read, and he has a track record of it, can be difficult to deal with, those two players have respect for dogs. And what I mean by that is Jimmy Butler has never had an issue with a teammate that he felt like was a hard worker, was someone that could help them win, and that he could challenge. I think it's been the same with Draymond. His biggest issue has been with players that he feels like have had a foot out or that haven't been all in or bought in on the team. And Draymond's done some things that I do not agree with. But the point is, I think those two personalities are very similar. They have respect for competitors. And they have respect for players that are there to do one thing, and that's win, that are committed to the team and that are there to help them win as much as possible. So from that standpoint, I don't really think that Draymond and Jimmy was a concern of mine off the floor. As much as their personalities are, reportedly explosive, those two working together was never going to be an issue for me. All right, from the 707, although KD was lethal with the Warriors, that was more of an ISO team. Jimmy makes them even more lethal overall defensively and offensively. He's way more effective for this team. And then Ball than KD so far. Oh, they've balled more than KD has. I'm assuming the 707 is talking about the Phoenix Suns, who have really struggled as of late, and are actually on the outside looking in of even the play-in. They're 1.5 games back of the 10 seed in the Dallas Mavericks, although they did get a win their last time out. The thing about Kevin Durant versus Jimmy Butler, and again, I've discussed how I think that this trade for Jimmy Butler has the potential, depending how far the Warriors go in the postseason, to be remembered as one of the greatest midseason trades in NBA history. Considering where the Warriors were, considering where they have a chance to go. I also think that, in regards to the MVP conversation, Nikola Jokic is the best player. SGA is my MVP. With the Warriors, Curry's the best player. Jimmy Butler's my MVP. Kevin Durant versus Butler. That's why I think, I believe that the Warriors would have been better if they traded for KD. I think they would have certainly won some games. Who knows? Maybe they would even be at the 6th seed right now. I do not believe that their ceiling would be as high as it is right now with Jimmy Butler. At this stage in his career, because I'm not talking about prime KD when they got him in 2016. That's an entirely different beast. But at age 36, Kevin Durant, to me, he's still an awesome scorer. Kevin Durant is one of the greatest players in the history of basketball. He's arguably one of the most gifted scorers in the history of basketball. And what he continues to do at this age is quite remarkable. He is averaging, in 37 minutes, mind you, 27 points per game on 42% shooting, 41 from three-point range. He's having an awesome season. And so there's no doubt in my mind that he would have made the Warriors better. He would have helped their scoring, and to the 707's point, would have turned them into a little more of an ISO team, which is what the Phoenix Suns, quite frankly, are. They're just an ISO group, and they give the ball to Beal or Booker or KD or whoever and just let them go to work. But I don't think that they would be as good defensively. And I don't think that we would have seen the kind of residual impact from Butler on the rest of the players right now on the Warriors. I'm talking about the Moses Moody's. I'm talking about now that we're getting to see Jonathan Kaminga, who's a big part of this as well. If you just look at the Warriors' impact statistically, I want to bring this up because the Warriors have compiled during their game notes a before and after of Butler that I think is really interesting. And if we're looking at the Warriors, I do think that we have to discuss, all right, well, what would they have been with Kevin Durant and what would they have been with, or what have they been with Jimmy Butler? To me, looking at this here, pull this up real fast, what they have been with Butler is a top 3 offense. That's something that, I don't know, perhaps KD could have impacted. They have been number 1 in assists per game. I think that also is a big reason that they're a top 3 group in terms of offensive rating. That's a stat that with Kevin Durant, and I know that he's played in this system before, I know he's a willing passer, but I think at this stage in his career, as more of just a pure scorer, I do not think the Warriors would be number 1 in assists per game right now. Over the last 15, again, I don't think they would be number 1 in steals per game. While KD is still a capable defender, I don't think that, again, his impact on that end of the floor is as great as his impact on the offensive side. They might be number 1 in free throw percentage. They might be tied for 3rd in terms of free throws attempted per game, which is where they're currently at over the last 15. They were 27th and 30th, respectively, in those stats before. I do not think the Warriors, again, to take it to the defensive side, would be number 1 in points off of turnovers per game. And that's where I can honestly say that while Kevin Durant is going to go down in history as a better player than Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Butler was the better fit for Golden State at the deadline. And I don't know, and I don't know if we'll ever find out if that trade was, again, by design, if it was something that the Warriors had planned all along, if it just was simply luck. Like, I actually think, because remember, the whole reason why the Warriors ended up with Jimmy Butler in the first place is, number one, because KD nixed a trade. They had one set up that was going to send Kaminga to Phoenix. Wiggins was going out too. It would have been KD, Draymond, and Steph from all reports. KD said no. The other trade that did not go through, that made this entire thing possible for the Warriors, is the fact that Bradley Beal would not relinquish his no trade clause. If Bradley Beal had been willing to go to, I don't know, Milwaukee or perhaps Chicago, maybe even Miami. I mean, I don't think they would have taken him. The point is, if Bradley Beal had said, yeah, I'm cool, get me out of here, I'll hold the no trade clause, Jimmy Butler would be a Phoenix Sun. And I do think that he would absolutely help the Suns. I'm not sure if it would be to the extent that he's helped, say, Golden State, because I don't think that Phoenix plays a lick of defense. The Warriors, while they were offensively challenged before the trade deadline, they were still a borderline top 10 defense. Like, that was a team with potential on that end of the floor. They just weren't elite to the point where they were able to win games more often than not with just their defense. So Jimmy Butler is able to impact both ends of the floor. I think he helps elevate, obviously, their defense, and clearly their offense is moving to a different stratosphere. But again, with Kevin Durant, I think that offensively they could still be an extremely efficient team, but defensively, I just don't see it. I don't see how Kevin Durant has the impact on that end of the floor at his age and with his mind to simply just be a scorer at an elite level, mind you, than Jimmy Butler has for the Golden State Warriors. 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings flying solo here on Warriors this week. Got my man Steven Risotto behind the glass with me. We're taking your calls up until 10:30 when we're going to replay Steph Curry from Steiny and Guru earlier this week. We got Sam Gordon from the San Francisco Chronicle coming up at 11 o'clock to talk everything Dubs. He covers them. He's the beat writer for the Warriors for the Chronicle. And then Steven has a game that he wants to play at 11:30 that I'm very much looking forward to and then know nothing about. In the meantime, Robin is in San Francisco. Robin, good morning. Good to hear from you. How you doing?
I'm doing better, sweetheart. I had some health issues, and so I haven't been in my car to always constantly nag you guys. Thank you for asking. I wanted to point out something you may or may not agree with that 707 said about the Warriors being an ISO team when Kevin Durant was there. Well, here's the deal. They needed somebody that could play ISO ball because during that time they were at, I forgot the number, but they were way down at the bottom in isolation ball, okay? Yeah. And when motion ball wasn't working, they had nobody. So they needed an ISO player, and they would hand the ball to Kevin Durant. That was the unselfishness of them. Curry would unleash the ball. Clay would unleash the ball and say, go do your thing, partner. And 9 times out of 10, Kevin Durant did. And this is why I say the fans never really appreciate him. Oh, we're playing ISO ball. Well, the motion ball is not working. And then in some degree, Butler can isolate. If you look at the Warriors, the type of style of offense they play, they are not good at isolation ball, okay? So they need an ISO play. And that's all I have to say. Thank you and have a blessed day, sweetheart.
You too, Robin. I'm glad you're feeling better. Please call in anytime. Lots of love sending your way. Yeah, I think you're spot on. Yeah, the Warriors absolutely needed an ISO player, and that, I think, was the difference between them winning and losing the 2016 NBA Finals. You know, you could make it about Draymond getting suspended or whatnot, but if you're just talking hoop, like, they needed a bucket getter. They didn't score, I think, the last... was it 4 minutes of Game 7 of the NBA Finals? And again, Draymond Green was their leading scorer. And he was awesome in that game. But until, Friday, March 12th. It was on Thursday, 2025. From 2016 to 2025, Draymond Green had not been the leading scorer for the Warriors. So you're right. They needed an ISO player. They just happened to get... the best one in the world, which took him into a completely different realm on the heels of a 73-win season. Rich is out in Daly City, wants to talk about the Jimmy Butler effect. Rich, good morning, my man. What's going on?
Hey, good morning, Evan. I'm a long-time diehard Warrior fan, and I've always been pushing for the homegrown talent and stuff. I was a little hesitant with the Butler signing because of the locking up of the additional extension years, because I thought maybe it would affect our ability to sign Kaminga and add more talent. But, I think in retrospect, I think the Butler effect has been we have now, in a weird way, a true inside-out game where we don't have a traditional post person, but with him playing down low more, it frees up everyone, where before everyone was just standing on the wings waiting for someone to throw them the ball. But now we have legitimate threat to get the defenses moving around and then creating holes for everyone else. And I think that's the big effect of Jimmy Butler. Plus, he's incentivized the offense now because the defense, because everyone's like excited now. And I love the fact that he's unlocking everyone now, including Moody and hopefully JK and some of the other guys. And I think that's the big effect that he's having for us. What do you think?
I think you're on the money, Rich. I mean, clearly he is elevated the play of everyone else around him. Your point is well taken, and to kind of piggyback off of what you said and went along with Robin, and thank you for the call, Rich. It's the biggest thing, Steven, that I'm waiting for, because you mentioned this earlier, like the Jimmy Butler game. For example, what do you think the Jimmy Butler game looks like? Is it stats? Is it I don't know? Does it have to be in the playoffs? Like what does the Jimmy Butler game look like to you?
I think it's just 40 plus points. He goes off. I think there are Jimmy Butler games, but in different ways than we might think that aren't points related. And it's just the invisible factor that he brings with, getting guys in the right spot on the floor, moving the ball around. Those are the things that I think has made Jimmy Butler such a valuable addition. But what I mean by there hasn't been the Jimmy game, I'm thinking like he just takes over, where instead of Jimmy setting everybody up, everybody's setting Jimmy up. And maybe that's not, the way that this offense is working now with him in the fold, but I think a game like he had, what was it, in the postseason in 2020 with Miami in the bubble, where he
a 40-point triple-double.
40-point triple-double.
Is that what a Jimmy Butler game looks like?
Maybe that's asking for too much. But honestly, I'm at the point where maybe we don't even need one, because we haven't needed it up until this point, and they're 13-3 too. So maybe we don't even need one.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, look, Jimmy's averaging 16.8 points on 45.5% shooting since he's gotten here. Hasn't also been able to throw a three into the ocean. But everyone else around him, to your point, is playing better. Like the Warriors right now in the last 15 games, of which they've won 13, they have 7 players that are averaging double digits. And the 7th is a little bit of a cheat because it's Jonathan Kaminga, who just got 18 in his first game back. So his average is looking pretty good right now. But the point being, they are closer resembling the team that was, strength in numbers to me than like the Durant era Warriors, where it was 3 20-point scores. That's where you're getting all your points. Steph, Clay, KD are taking all of the shots. And, you might have a guy contributing off the bench like Sean Livingston or David West or whoever else you want, but those are going to be your 3 dogs. The Warriors are a lot more balanced. And I think it's because that Butler doesn't have to be a guy who dominates the ball on the offensive side of the floor. Again, he took 5 shots against Sacramento. He had 6 points. He had 6, 7, and 5. Like, it was like a Draymond game, basically. And there were multiple times when I felt like he was at the rim with an opportunity to finish, maybe get fouled, but certainly had an open layup. And instead, he would kick it out to the corner to an open shooter. The very first shot of the game that he took, he got blocked by Valanciunas. And instead of trying to go right into the chest of the big man and maybe get fouled again and get his, basically, he throws it to the corner to a 23.3 three-point shooter in Draymond Green. Like, that's the kind of trust that I think he has in his teammates. And at least for the last couple of games, they've been rewarding him, because someone like GP2 apparently can't miss from 3. Draymond has had a revival of his three-point shot, at least for now. And I wonder when those numbers start to come back a little bit down to earth. But even the other guys, Moses Moody over his last 15 games is averaging 12.5 points per game on 46, 37, 90 from the free throw line. Buddy Hield in 22 minutes, because, again, his role's been moved down a little bit. 11 points per game, shooting 37% from three-point range, and that's exactly what you need from him. Podziemski, before he got hurt, 12.5 points per game. Like, Jimmy Butler is allowing all of these guys that are not prolific scorers, but can be gravy players to Steph, who's been unbelievable. He's averaging near 29 points, even on the heels of an 11-point game against Sacramento. 28.7 points per game over his last 15. Near 50% from the floor, 42 from distance, 93 from the free throw line. So when you have Curry, who can, I don't want to say, he's just become a scorer now, but he's allowed to just do whatever he wants offensively. He's allowed to play with aggression. He can play with a bit more passive, a passive approach on that end of the floor if he needs to. The attention that he draws opens things up a bit more, and I don't think it's a coincidence that the Warriors over the last 2 games have been allowed to shoot the ball at a near 60% clip from three-point range because while they're, I think, a little bit streaky, I don't think they're a great three-point shooting team, those guys are getting open shots. And so while in some games they might not go down, you also might catch the other side of the coin where they're going to hit the majority of those shots, and it's going to be very difficult for them to get beat. Again, the one thing that I would like to see them clean up, which could be the deciding factor between a win or loss, what I believe over the next 3 games are going to be their biggest test yet with the Knicks, the Nuggets, and the Bucks, is going to be ball control, ball security. They've averaged 17.5 turnovers per game over the last 4. They've given up 86 points off of turnovers. That's over 20 points per game off turnovers. That, to me, is not going to fly when you're playing better groups, especially teams that believe that they can contend for a championship. Maybe less so New York. They haven't shown to be a team that can, even at full strength, beat good squads. But Milwaukee with Giannis, the Warriors have not faced yet. They're an entirely different beast with him. And the Denver Nuggets are a team that's beaten the Warriors 7 times out of the last 7 meetings, going back to the 2022 postseason. So they're going to be very much tested. But again, the Butler effect is, it's on paper. And I think the eye test, it passes that too. The one thing that I also believe that Jimmy has an ability to do a bit more of, which to me, Steve, is where we're going to see the Butler game, is I do think he can be an ISO scorer. Like, we've seen that a part of his past, but it's also been when he's had to be the one. Like you mentioned 2020. That team had a rookie Tyler Hero. That team had a third-year player in Bam Adebayo. That team had, I think, a second-year player in Duncan Robinson, who was one of their leading scorers on that team. That was a very young Heat group in which he had to lead them. Even as recently as 2023, when they lost to the Nuggets in the finals, that was still a team of 25 and youngers, where Jimmy had to be the lead dog. He had to go out there and be an isolation scorer at times for them to win postseason games. I think there is going to come a time where we're thinking about the ways that the Warriors can win 4 games out of 7. How can you beat a team 4 times in 2 weeks? How can you get 16 wins over the course of 2 months, which is what you have to do to win a championship? There's absolutely going to be a game where Jimmy is going to take over, and it's not because he is someone that wants to do it. It's because he needs to. If he needs to score, and if that's the right play, I believe that he will do it. And one of the reasons is because he might have to take the pressure off of the guy we're going to hear from on the other side, and that is Steph Curry. Sat down for an awesome interview with Steiny and Guru. If you didn't have a chance to catch it, we're going to replay it for you coming up on the other side. And then at 11 o'clock, we're going to talk to Sam Gordon, Warriors beat writer for the San Francisco Chronicle. Very much tapped in. Looking forward to talking with him about everything that's going on with Butler, Curry, and, of course, the return of Jonathan Kaminga. And then at 11:30, Steven Risotto, holding it down for us behind the glass, has got a game that we can all play together. But on the other side, Steph Curry, Steiny, Guru. Keep it locked right here on Warriors This Week. Evan Giddings flying solo today, and I appreciate for all of those of you who have chimed in for it. All right, we're back after this on 95.7 The Game.
So what are you reading?
I'm checking out the ratings on the new TVs, and it looks like Sam...
Things flying solo with you here today. Dan Devone's supposed to be back next week, 9 to noon every single Saturday. Warriors this week are on 95.7 The Game. We got Warriors-Knicks coming up at 5:30. Warriors live at 4:30. And Tim Roy, along with Tom Tolbert, have the call for you, the voice of Golden State Warriors basketball, for the 5:30 tip between the Warriors and the Knicks. Looking forward to that. A team that has had, I don't know, bit of a special place in one Stephen Curry's career. Obviously, his 50-burger and kind of coming out party in the 2013 season. Just put on a show in Madison Square Garden not too long ago where he was getting MVP chants and has basically just made Madison Square Garden somewhat of a second home for him. Steph Curry talked about a lot of these things, maybe not MSG, but he talked about his future. He talked about the future of this team, the potential that it has, and a lot more with Steiny and Guru earlier this week. And so right now, if we can, Steven, I want to replay that conversation for the people. We're also going to talk to Sam Gordon at 11 o'clock, beat writer for the Warriors for the San Francisco Chronicle. But right now, let's listen to the chef who joined Steiny and Guru live from Chase Center in person. An awesome interview. Here it is in its entirety.
Number 30
there he
is entering the building. Steph Curry.
Yes, sir.
Steph, how you doing, man? Good to see you. What's going on? Thank you so much for joining us. And how's it going, man?
It's going great. Just finished a great professional practice.
What's happening?
Just discipline, details, short and sweet. And we're trying to keep the vibes going. Wins are nice, but you still know we're still trying to get better, put things together. And welcome JK back tomorrow. Should be fun.
I mean, is it fair to say what we've all seen is real, that Jimmy getting here has energized you and Draymond and the whole team and has made you more of a believer that you could do something special this year?
That's what the trade signified when we did it, and you still have uncertainty whether it's going to work or not, but it puts everybody on edge. It gives you a sense of urgency to, figure out what it looks like on the court on both ends. And I think from the jump, obviously our record shows the new life that we have and how good Jimmy is and how good of a fit it is. But I think we're patient enough to know we have a long way to go. And so the building blocks from where we were pre-trade to where we are now, I like where we're at. I think we're all, like you said, energized and rejuvenated and optimistic that we can compete with anybody. But, we have 18, 19 games left. We just want to solidify a playoff series. That's it.
Right.
The chef, Steph, I'm so happy for you and the fans and the team, because I remember you at the one of the post-game press conferences, and you're my barometer. And I was like, man, it kind of despondent. We ain't built to come back. But walk us through where you were at when you got the news that Jimmy was coming to town and your thoughts.
That was a whirlwind of a day. We were about to play Utah, and rumors, talks, conversations, what ifs. And then it happens. So first you're upset because you're losing guys that you went to war with. Wiggs especially, who helped us win a championship and saw him flourish for the 5 years he was here. Dennis, Kyle, Lindy, seeing them guys go who were a big part of early in the year. And then you think about the future. Yeah, we're excited that Jimmy was here. We were, again, understanding of who he was as a superstar. And the idea that he plays basketball a very similar way, trying to, as he would say, make the right play. But he demands a presence, and it's a guy that you have to worry about out there on the floor. And you can see it's helped me and Draymond, but I think overall it's helped everybody else more because he makes guys around him better, and he does it really naturally.
Well, when you first heard either his name brought up for the first time, there was some stuff out there that the Warriors are maybe a little concerned with Butler's presence in the locker room, and this is a team that's been together for a while, or at least its core. Did you have any of those, or that's just stuff from the outside that you don't pay attention to?
There's noise everywhere.
You told us you hear everything.
I hear everything. You try to filter through everything too to know what's real and what's not. I talked to Draymond. I talked to Mike Dunleavy, who was his vet in Chicago back in the day, and they spoke so highly of who Jimmy was. When the family feuds, it's obviously tough, and I know him and Miami have had a history of winning, and also didn't end the way that they wanted to. But when we talked to and understood Jimmy was going to be here, it was just about, showing up, being a professional. He's motivated to win, and that's everything that I heard. And when you get locked in, Jimmy, it's the absolute best, and it's our job collectively to keep that energy going.
You guys just went on a road trip, and you were in Brooklyn, Steph, and the Brooklyn fans were chanting MVP. I know you didn't heard it all, but just walk us through that. When you're in enemy territory, MVP, and they're talking about the visitor.
I like that because that means you're winning. You don't get the MVP chance if you're down 20 on the road. So it's just a big idea of, Dub Nation travels. Like, we've had a really good presence in a lot of different, arenas, and when you're winning and the vibes are good, like you appreciate those environments, because that's the thing. Talking to any ex-pro who's played in this league, I don't care if you're a star or whatever, you miss that adrenaline rush, that not only the competition on the court, but the fan interaction and engagement, like that all matters, and it means something. And so I definitely appreciate it.
I mean, we all see what kind of Jimmy's done on the court. Are you surprised he's been able to cure your bilateral tendonitis?
I was worried, Steph, early.
Nah, it's still there.
How are you feeling? My way of saying that.
I feel good. Like, I think the idea is I've learned my body this year more than I have, had to in the previous years. Obviously, the ankle injuries early in my career, coming off the hand surgery, whatever, 5-6 years ago, into what this year was. So I've learned my body, learned what it needs to do to get right. Over the last 2 months, I've been able to kind of commit to that process. And it helps, obviously, to have another guy where the load isn't as demanding physically and emotionally every single game. Doesn't mean that I'm not approaching it the same way, but it feels different. And like I said, when you're out there on, the way that we've handled the minutes when I'm off the court, and Jimmy's been able to run the show, and Moses is playing great. BP, when he was healthy, was playing great. We still don't even have JK back. Like, when the vibe and everything on the court, it does help because you're not carrying that load. So, it's been an interesting year all the way around for sure.
Let me ask you this, because I know as much as you can share with us, 2022, you shocked the world. Nobody saw the Warriors winning it. You guys got off to that great start. This season starts, I was like, I don't know. And then you make the trade. But, Steph, I told Stoney and the listeners, I mean, you're as frisky as all outdoors. You got a pep in your step. Do you think about number 5? Can you taste it? Do you feel something?
We talked about it. Somebody asked me this summer, like, what are you still playing for? That's literally the only thing you're playing for. And when you feel far away from it because you don't have a consistent, you're not rewarded consistently with wins on a nightly basis, or there's growing pains with the team, it does kind of, knock at your confidence and your ability to imagine what it's like to be, a relevant contender. And like I said, I like where we're at right now. I think we have what it takes to do it. But I'm not fast forwarding to saying, we're a championship team right now, because we have another level to get to before we get to a playoff type environment. And I'm excited about that challenge. All I wanted to be is in the fight. All I wanted was a chance. All I wanted was an ability to look across the Western Conference and say, yeah, we can go toe-to-toe with whoever. And I feel like we're knocking on that door.
Steph Curry joining us, courtesy of the River Islands guest line on 95.7 The Game. Guru and Steiny here at Chase Center. Warriors just finished up practice. Where did Night come from?
We all want to know.
Denver, Game 3 in 2022. Me and Andre, there was one possession right before I made a layup down the stretch, like less than a minute left. He was up on the sideline. He was barking at everybody, and I was like, "No, I got this. I'm gonna put him to sleep right now." And I said that to him. It just mouthed it. I didn't do the sign or nothing. And I made the layup, and I did like a little quick, or the first quick night, and then it kind of just evolved from there. So it's been a whirlwind, just seeing how many people have kind of attached to it in other sports, and signifying like, the job is done. So. even seeing fans start to like encourage, like, oh, I need a night tonight. And it's like, well, we got 48 minutes to play first. Y'all too demanding.
Now I'm looking at you. You're in phenomenal shape, and your buddy LeBron James gets a lot of credit for his physique and his fitness at his age. But Steph, I feel like you get slighted. I'm looking at you. How long can you play? Because right now you just got a bounce in your step, man.
I don't know. I've tried to answer that question before, and I've said a lot of different things just based on how I feel that day. But I think, it's all kind of measured on the style of can I get to that level that I expect from myself. It's not really attached to like points per game or stats thing. It's just a feeling like, can I dominate a game? Can I play my style for 30 plus minutes? And then you kind of reevaluate every year. So I know how my contract's lined up, and I'd like to outplay that for sure. How long that goes, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I would you look at a guy like Tim Duncan, and he just kind of wound down into a real good role player. I think it's different for guards, and I'm like, that's one thing I've been curious about is if you look at what your role may become over the years, or you think to yourself, I'm going to be Steph Curry in 2 or 3 years, I'm going to be the same guy, or will you eventually make some kind of adjustment?
No, I think it's just a matter of having clarity to be able to answer that question and know, like, nobody wants to be naive to think, oh, I'm still that guy, and you're not, and you have a system built around you, and you have expectations built around, that type of team. To that point, we're not there. What it looks like down the road, I'll figure that out. But I love the game, and I think the fact that I still show up and still have as much fun as I do every single night, that to me is the blessing and the beauty of where I'm at, about to turn 37. Just like I feel the exact same like a kid when I'm out there playing. It does take me a little longer to get there, the pre-warm-up stuff and the recovery days and all that, but I still can get there.
Well, let me throw it to you this way. Like, down the line, could you ever see yourself coming off the bench?
I mean, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I think everything's on the table. To the question of defining, like, how long do I want to play? What is it going to take for me to do that? I'll answer those questions, but I'm open to anything. If it means I can win, nobody wants to just be around just existing. If it means I can win, I'd approach it anyway.
Talk to us about how proud you were, because I am of the Bay Area. You hosted some parties for the All-Star game. And, Steph, I do got to ask you one personal question. Why no three-point contest?
I've been there, done that.
Yeah,
man.
I had to ask.
We were trying to get the me and Sabrina part 2 back, and it just didn't work out. I think we'll come back to that at some point. I know it's not in the Bay, but to have Draymond, Moses, and the Skills join, for me to show up at the All-Star game and get the MVP, it was a good ending to the weekend. I was super proud of the entire Bay Area just because of the way that it showed up, representing the history of basketball culture here. Everybody who came said they had an amazing time. They saw the Bay in a different light, and I love the experience. So yeah, it was fun.
You guys really think you can win it?
Absolutely. That's why we're juiced to be in this position. I mean, how many teams think they can win it right now? Probably, 8 to 10?
I'd say 8.
Maybe how many have won it 4 times?
I'm saying? There's 8 to 10 teams every year, 6 to 8, 10 teams every year that think that they can win it. If you want to be in that category, does it mean it's going to happen? We'll see. But I like the idea that we can confidently say on a night to night, we can figure out how to beat anybody.
Let me ask you this: like, why, if you were to win it all, what would be the reason you'd win it all? And then what would be the reason that would get you beat?
There are some really good teams out there. You could look at Boston, Cleveland, OKC, Denver. They're records teams that have 3 of those teams who have won it before. So you think about experience, but for us, we have that experience on our side. We have a good balance of veteran presence, youthful energy. I think the fact that since the trade, our roles have been clearly defined. Our rotation's pretty consistent from a night-to-night perspective. It might get a little tighter as you get closer to playoffs, but having your 9-10 guys that are going to play, the bulk of the minutes, who's going to be out there on the floor, that clarity has given us a lot of confidence. But at the end of the day, me, Draymond, Jimmy, we've all been around. We know what it's like to be in a playoff series, to have to figure out that specific opponent and how to beat them 4 times. And like I said, if you get us in that scenario, we like our chances. So
I shouldn't take the field this year?
Was this the same room we were in? No, we were maybe it's a different room when I
the year I took the field, that was the Lakers year. You won it the year before.
We didn't do that. That wasn't the same year.
Yeah.
I messed up.
They was coming off a championship.
I got you.
Steph,
I'll let you put the odds out there. We'll do our stuff.
They just got
a
lot better, I'll tell you that. Man, I am so excited about the rest of this season in the playoffs. But to appreciate the good, I'm one of them. You got to remember the bad. But Steph, how much did you pay attention to last year when you guys didn't make it, lost to the Kings? Like, how much did that fuel you to where you're at now? Because I ain't gotten over it.
Well, personally, I had plenty of time to sit on my couch, watch the playoffs, get ready for the Olympics.
So you do watch?
Oh, yeah, I watch a lot. But I was getting ready for the Olympics last summer and was motivated to get back into high-stakes basketball. And then obviously that played out great. This year we got out to a great start, and then hit a lot of challenges. And at the end of the day, like, you just appreciate, because of being 16 years in the league and how many times we've done this, and being with one franchise and trying to recreate this, with another iteration of this team. Like, all of that stuff just brings out the best in you. And so, you think about that. You got to appreciate the down. Like, even before 22, we were so far away from the mountaintop and figured out a way to climb back to it. And for us to even just have a consideration, like, oh, we're in 6, like, we jumped 5 spots in 3 weeks up the conference standings, like that. Who would have thought that 3 weeks ago? So I like where we're at. We just got to stay present, man. That everybody's gonna. As they should, compare us to what it looks like to hang another banner. But we know what it takes to take our time and take the baby steps to get there.
Is it, like, physically? I mean, you're going to be 37. Jimmy's up there. Draymond's up there. There's never been a team with 3 core players of your age. The Bulls with Jordan and Rodman had Ron Harper, but Scotty was a little younger. I mean, do you think about where you're at in your career and how unbelievable this would be?
Man. I think about it all the time. I even think about how unbelievable it's been to be where we are right now. So you just kind of recreate that confidence and that internal belief. Like, even the fact that most people didn't think I'd still be playing at this level at the age that I'm at. So we defy odds consistently. So why not do it again?
So we heard you got a new job, assistant GM at Davidson. Talk to us, Steph.
It's a pretty cool opportunity with myself, Aisha, the Berman family, alumni from Davidson. This 8-figure pledge that we've committed to both the men's and women's basketball teams. I know it's a very competitive landscape in college basketball right now, but the experience that I had at Davidson and the ability to commit to a program and be there 4 years and understand what it's like to represent the Wildcat program, for me, I wanted to make sure we had that competitive advantage and be a resource. So I'm excited about the opportunity. We just got a big win in the A-10 today against Richmond.
Nice.
Shout out to Kenny Atkinson. But yeah, it's about just supporting my alma mater, who I want to recreate that experience that I had, that I've benefited from, the teammates that I got to play for. Coach McKillop, he's established an unbelievable. Coach Bob McKillop has established an unbelievable program. Matt McKillop now the head coach. So we're in it for the long run.
All right. Well, we just wanted to.
And that was Steiny and Guru live at Chase Center with none other than number 30, Stephen Curry, who, of course, just turned 37 a couple days after, on Friday, right after he broke the 4,000 career three-point threshold, which, by the way, I said this a couple times. Like, Steve, where do you fall on how impressive that feat is? Like, I'm not going to lie. I didn't think it was a massive deal, because if we're being realistic, every time he makes a three, it's history. Like, he broke the record in 2022. And also, by the way, I think threes in the postseason are pretty important. Another career mark he also owns. So, like, don't get me wrong. The applause was awesome. I love how much Chase Center was into it. Curry said he got emotional seeing Andres Biedrins send him the message about his first career assist for Curry's three, or his first career three from the Biedrins assist. But, like, I don't know. Of all the storylines going on with the Warriors, and especially that night with Kaminga's return, like I guess I didn't really see it. Did you?
No. And the reason is because I think you just mentioned it perfectly. The record in regards to three-point shooting that he needed to break, he broke. The Ray Allen record was it. And we as a society are just so caught up in round numbers. And I do think it's cool. I do think that it is cool to be a round number, and he's in a club by himself. Is there a possibility somebody gets to that club? Maybe, maybe not. You know, I love that it promotes conversation within our station, basketball, sports. It's fun. But at the same time, I agree. He's making history with every additional three he makes. 4,000 to me just... It's the same thing as 4,001. I know that sounds like a get off my lawn type thing, but I mean, Barry Bonds he broke the record and then he hit 6 more home runs that nobody even thinks about, So in every sport, I think, once you break the record, I think somebody joining the 4,000 club additionally down the road would be a bigger deal than Steph creating the 4,000 club. And I think maybe that's unfair.
No, I mean, I kind of felt the same way about LeBron scoring 50,000 points. Like, I didn't care. It didn't hit me the way I guess people are promoting it across all these other NBA platforms. Like, oh my God, it's unreal, and this guy is the greatest, or I don't know, whatever you want to say. Like, 50K meant nothing to me. He already had the points record. Now, what I think is going to be important for both of those two guys, but applying it primarily to Steph, whatever the final number is, that is something that I think we should celebrate because, in my opinion, it's never going to be touched. Whatever that number ends up being, because I'm assuming he's going to play, and you heard during Steiny and Guru's interview with him, he wants to outplay his current contract, which I believe right now is through the 2027 season, 2 more years lined up, because he's aligned with Butler along with Draymond. If he keeps shooting it, and I don't even know if it's at this clip, but like let's say he takes a slight dip, he's going to have a chance to get to 5,000 threes if he stays healthy for a few more seasons. And whatever number, I don't care if it's 5,000 or 4,832. That number to me is going to be untouchable. And I went through a little bit of the math, and I know we got Sam Gordon coming up in 5 minutes here on Warriors this week. But real quick, you look at the guy that I think probably has the best chance to break it, because I was talking about this with someone yesterday, and someone said, well, Trae Young's got a shot. And I said, no, he doesn't. Like, no, he does not. Trae Young currently makes close to 3 threes per game, and he shoots around 35%. And I think he averages 9 attempts per game. What he would need to do at age 26 until he's age 36, just to be in the conversation, to be in the realm of wherever Curry's going to leave this 3-point career mark, is he would have to raise his 3-point attempts to about 13 or 14 per game. He would then have to raise his 3-point percentage from 35 to at least 40%. And he would have to raise his total 3-point makes per game from about 3, where it is right now for his career, to 4.5. That to me, and that's just to be in the conversation, not even to break a record or get close. Like, that's how difficult it is for someone who is currently in the NBA. Where I think that people believe that one day it's going to be broken is because of how important the 3-point shot is. That to me is a basketball-wide thing. It's not an individual thing. Some individual is not going to come along and break that 3-point record, but the league will continue to shoot more threes. It's all about the volume from the team, not the volume from an individual. That's where I think it's going to eventually be ultimately impressive at its peak, is whatever that final number ends up being. The 4,000 in itself didn't really mean that much to me. All right, we can talk about this along with a multitude of other things. Jonathan Kaminga's return, the Warriors' hot stretch as they get set for the New York Knicks tonight at 5:30 with the Warriors beat writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, Sam Gordon, coming up on the other side on Warriors this week. Evan Giddings flying solo with you on 95.7 The Game. We're back after this.
Spring into action at Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Your 15-minute drive-through oil change. Stay in your car while...
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
All right, good morning, everyone. 2 hours in, 1 hour to go. Evan Giddings rolling solo with Steven Risotto here on a weekend. Warriors This Week every single Saturday from 9 to noon here on 95.7 The Game. Thank you, Pasta. Warriors are taking on the Knicks tonight at 5:30. Warriors live at 4:30, all right here on your home for Golden State Warriors basketball. But now it's time to go out to the River Islands guest line. I've been hyping this guy up all show, and for good reason. All guests on 95.7 The Game appear on the River Islands guest line. Isn't it time for you to discover the islands? River Islands in Lathrop. Sam Gordon, Warriors beat writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, is kind enough to join us now. Sam, what's going on? Good morning.
Evan, good morning. Happy Saturday. Appreciate you having me. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm looking forward to tonight. Obviously, a nationally televised game, matchup with the Knicks, and kind of a three-game stretch that should be a tough test for the Warriors, even with Jalen Brunson inactive. But before we get into that, I do want to ask you, because you've been as tapped into this team as anyone in the Bay Area. You've been on road trips. You've been behind the scenes. You've seen both the valleys of this year, and now it appears to be the peak as they've won 11 games in a row with Jimmy Butler on the floor. What do you think has been, I don't know if it's the biggest difference or the biggest impact, but just from your vantage point, how have the Warriors just been able to spin this season on its head? Has it been all Jimmy?
He's undoubtedly played, I think, the biggest part of it, right? And just being somebody else that you can run offense through, that can bend a defense and affect the geometry of the floor, that can create advantage basketball, right? We understand Steph Curry is the best in the NBA at doing that with the schemes and the defensive attention he catches. But for most of the season, right, until Jimmy Butler arrived, teams could throw the kitchen sink at Steph Curry, and for the most part, the Warriors couldn't make them pay. Now you add Jimmy Butler into the fold, balances Steph Curry's perimeter production, more so in the paint, can work out of the low post, gives them an option to score out of the low post, a secondary playmaker, even kind of a co-primary playmaker along with Steph Curry. And then, the residual effects of adding a Jimmy Butler, adding somebody of his magnitude. Now everybody else is playing in more space, is playing against defenses that are in rotation constantly. Now your offense is more efficient. Other teams are picking the ball out of the net and having to walk the ball up the floor. You're able to set your defense. It all works together. So Moses Moody's been fantastic with Jimmy Butler. I mean, everybody, right? Brandon Podziemski, Jonathan Kaminga, spectacular the other night in his return. Quentin Post, Guy Santos, Gary Payton II, Draymond Green. It goes on and on. The team has found its collective groove, playing great two-way basketball, and having another player, right, besides Stephen Curry, creating advantages offensively, lubricating the offense with his passing. You're seeing 0.5 Golden State Warriors basketball these last 15 games, and then defensively, really cohesive team defense that's been steady as well. So, yeah, his individual production, but his presence and what his presence means for everybody else on this team, yeah, as you mentioned, has completely changed things. And lo and behold, the Warriors have won 13 of 15 and look like one of the better teams in the NBA right now.
Absolutely. Well said. Sam Gordon with us here on the River Islands guest line, covers the Golden State Warriors for the San Francisco Chronicle. Now, Raymond Ritter, president of communications for the Golden State Warriors, told us earlier this week, is it true that you sat down with Jimmy Butler for a one-on-one during the last road trip?
Absolutely. Yep, at the team hotel in New York City.
Well, I wonder if you could tell our listeners just what you, and I know it's you're not the guy's best friend or anything, but in that one-on-one sit-down, and not many people have had a chance to talk to Jimmy one-on-one since he's gotten to Golden State. What did you learn from that conversation about basically the catalyst to, like you said, this 13-2 stretch?
All about winning for Jimmy Butler. All about winning, and he loves that about the Warriors. That's been the identity of the organization the last 10, 11 years, and that's what he has come in to do. There's no ego. Everybody plays their part. It's a selfless organization. There's total buy-in from everybody, and he's definitely excited to be a part of an organization that has those kind of values. And talked about just kind of the family atmosphere that the Warriors foster and how vital and how warming that's been for him. Something else that Draymond Green talked about post game the other night too, about how that Steve Kerr has played a massive part in the family atmosphere that the Warriors have. But I glean just in those 15 minutes, he's incredibly strong-willed. He's himself 100% of the time, and that's worked for him, right? That's how he got to this point was the iron will that he's had in himself and his abilities at the highest level. And he's having a blast incorporating that, with the Warriors and into the Warriors, into their locker room. So beyond that, obviously very worldly, has a lot of interest beyond basketball. Of course, he's a coffee connoisseur. He's a wine connoisseur. He's incredibly well traveled. Definitely enjoys the fruits of his labor, but they don't keep him from keeping the main thing, and that's winning. That's pursuing a championship. Just about the only thing that's eluded him in his 14-year career. He has the individual accolades. He has the All-Star appearances, All-NBA. He's been to the finals twice, but now he wants to win a championship. And I think, again, watching the Warriors play, seeing how he's fit in, how seamless it's been, his approach, it backs up what he says. It's not about statistics for Jimmy Butler. It never has been. And certainly the statistics aren't necessarily always glamorous, but the impact is always conspicuous that he makes on a game. Seeing these last 14, 15 games, the savvy he plays with, the understanding of positioning, where he is on the floor relative to his teammates, their strengths, his strengths, how they blend together. It's been on display. So he's having a blast. He loves being a part of the Warriors culture. And the Warriors have welcomed him with open arms. It's been a seamless fit, an excellent transition. And now 16 more games, right, with Jonathan Kaminga in the fold to kind of figure out what this thing looks like, iron out any kinks, and get this thing ready for a potential postseason run.
Sam Gordon joining us, courtesy of the River Islands guest line, covers the Golden State Warriors for the San Francisco Chronicle. I do want to get to Kaminga, but you mentioned something about how Jimmy doesn't care about stats, and I think that the Sacramento game was like Exhibit A. I mean, he took 5 shots and 6 points. It was almost like a Draymond Green line. Man, so we've been trying to figure out here, because I think the closest thing to say, a Jimmy game would have been against the Pistons, where he kind of took over that stretch in the third quarter. He scored 26 points, but I know we haven't seen one yet, and everyone still is waiting, I guess. Like, to you, what does the Jimmy Butler game look like?
Oh, that's a tremendous question. The Jimmy Butler game looks like whatever the situation calls for, right? And that he is one of the unique players. There's not many of them in the NBA, but he can kind of shapeshift and adapt his style of play to whatever the game calls for, right? You need him to go get you need him to get physical and get to the free throw line and slow things down and use his physicality and his savvy to go get 30. Okay, he can do that, right? You need him to run your offense to kind of be the point forward, so to speak, and get 10, 15 assists. Okay, he can do that. You need him to anchor a defense from the back line right next to Draymond Green. You need him to if his shot's not falling, you need him to defend. Okay, no problem. He can do that. And then, of course, if you need him to get on the glass, he's a great rebounder. Whatever the game calls for. I mean, that's been his MO his entire career. The Warriors haven't relied on him. They haven't required his offense. They haven't required him, like you mentioned, Evan, say for the Detroit game, for him to go out there and kind of press the issue and look for his shot. But he can do it. I mean, we're talking about somebody that outplayed LeBron James in finals games, right? Mm-hmm. There's a very short list of players who have done that. Well, the Warriors have a couple of them now. So whatever the game, whatever the situation calls for, he's shown throughout the course of his career he can adapt to that. He's done that so far with the Warriors. The Warriors haven't called on him to put up gaudy statistics or to have a big offensive game. But when it's demanded, when it's required, he can get to the line. He can attack the basket. He can score from the perimeter. He's got a great mid-range game. He's a streaky three-point shooter, but he's made plenty of big ones. So he is truly one of the versatile, the most versatile kind of formless, shape-shifting players that are in the NBA today. And when the Jimmy game comes, when it has to come, imagine playing postseason, whatever that looks like, things slow down, it gets physical. It's time to battle in the trenches. He's more than cut out for that kind of game, and he can do a little bit of everything in those spots.
Sam Gordon with us on 95.7 The Game, courtesy of the River Islands guest line. Covers the Warriors for the San Francisco Chronicle. Yeah, I think it feels like if you ask Jimmy what a Jimmy game is, he would just tell you it's a win. Like that's what the Jimmy game looks like.
100%.
It's a win. And the Warriors have been doing a lot of that lately. And I think the last kind of, I don't know if it's puzzle piece. I mean, Podziemski's obviously going to be out tonight against the Knicks. They're not whole yet, but they took a step closer in that direction when they played the Kings by getting Jonathan Kaminga back. And I wasn't necessarily shocked at how I don't know, quickly or efficiently he was able to score. I don't think the Kings are a team that has a lot of interior presence, and especially without Sabonis, was not whole themselves. But Where do you feel like Kaminga fits in this group? Because a lot of people have made a big deal about, well, you don't want to mess up the chemistry. You don't want to mess with the good vibes that are going. I didn't necessarily look at it like that. I felt like it was going to be gravy for this team. But how do you see Kaminga fitting in, and were you impressed with his initial performance against Sac?
Yeah, Devin, absolutely. I was impressed. He fit like a glove. He fit in like exactly how he fit in the 6 games prior to the January 4th ankle sprain against the Memphis Grizzlies. And let's go back a little bit, right? There was a game that the Warriors lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I actually think they won. They beat the Minnesota Timberwolves. Steph was tremendous late in the game, closing, but it was a kind of a hard-fought fourth quarter, and Kaminga took a couple contested early shot clock mid-range jumpers in the second half that weren't great shot selections, not the kind of shots the Warriors are going to play for. And that's not because Steve Kerr is totally against mid-range shots. It's the quality of shot. It's the rhythm of the shot. It's where it comes in the flow of the offense. And these were jumpers that were not in the flow of the offense. And without name dropping them in his post-game press conference, Kerr, was critical of the shot selection, and he talked about the need to play 0.5 basketball when you're playing with Steph Curry, how keeping the ball moving, quick decision-making is ultimately what lubricates and what maximizes the Warriors' offense and what maximizes Curry. And in those 6 games after that, I mean, Kaminga got the memo. Everything was quick decision. He was attacking the basket, screening, cutting. When he didn't have anything going, he got off the ball and made something happen for a teammate. And lo and behold, averages almost 25 a game, 10 free throw attempts, 8 rebounds, playing 0.5 basketball within the flow of Golden State's offense. Well, now that offense is a lot better because you have Jimmy Butler. You have another player creating space for Jonathan Kaminga to read and react to, and that's exactly what he did on Thursday against the Kings. Everything was quick. It was within the flow. Even, his load-up dribbles and gathers, he wasn't playing with the basketball. He had a point to make in terms of where he wanted to get to with it, and he got there and he finished. And when he was off the ball, he was moving. You saw what he was able to do in transition. That first three-pointer that Steph Curry made, 3,999. Well, that was off Jonathan Kaminga's force in transition, driving and kicking to Curry in the corner. So there's no doubt in my mind that in order for this team to maximize its upside, Jonathan Kaminga is going to have to be a part of it. And I'm with you. I just with how well the Warriors were playing and with what he showed in terms of how he can fit and how he can adjust and start fitting into more of read and react principles, applying those. I would expect him only to get more and more comfortable playing off of, again, a second guy now that's drawing defensive attention, that's bending a defense. The ball is popping around. Guys are making shots. Quentin Post now to pair with him in the front court, opening up space. He was an absolutely perfect fit on Thursday. And then, again, I think they're going to, conversely, on the defensive side of the ball, I think the 6'7", 6'8", big, physical, athletic wing, he's going to be really important to what they do on that end in any kind of postseason play, given the dominant, perimeter wing, bigger wing scorers that are in the NBA that often decide postseason games. So there's no reason, seeing how well everybody else has fit around Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry and Draymond Green in this kind of new iteration of the Warriors, no reason to think Kaminga wouldn't fit how he did on Thursday, and no reason to think that wouldn't continue. They add an explosive, forceful driver that can play, read, and react, and that can give them a dynamic that they don't have with his above-the-rim play, with his explosiveness, and with his ability that I think the Warriors are going to really need to lean on to physically match top wings in the postseason.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. It just, my question was, if everyone else has gotten better around Jimmy, like why would Kaminga be the exception? I'm totally with you, Sam. And Sam Gordon is joining us from the San Francisco Chronicle, covers the Golden State Warriors right here on 95.7 The Game. You mentioned some of those better players, some of the better wings. Well, they're going to see a few of them beginning tonight with the New York Knicks, and the final of the 4 games of this homestand, I think, minus Toronto, are going to give us a little bit better of an idea of just how good this Warriors team is. You get the back-to-back against Denver and Milwaukee on the tail end of this. For you, is there something that you feel like we have not yet seen? And is it just them playing, I don't know, maybe an elite team, in my opinion, like the Denver Nuggets? What would be, I guess, what are you looking for over these next 3 games against some top-tier competition? What do you think the Warriors can prove?
Well, it's great that you bring that up, right? Because that is the caveat. The Warriors haven't seen the kind of teams yet that they're going to have to see in order to reach their ultimate goal of winning a championship. So while 13-2 is excellent, top second net rating in that time, top 5 offense, defense, all those things. Been a lot against a lot of teams that have been banged up, and quite frankly, just not a lot of top tier competition. So yeah. I'm looking to see. Denver, Milwaukee. These are you're talking about Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo, champions, bona fide champions in the primes of their careers that are going to have something to say in their respective conferences about how this postseason goes. So, and then the Warriors again. The small ball has been the strength of this team for a long time. They have certainly leaned into the small ball grouping since acquiring Jimmy Butler, but Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo are challenging matchups, even if you have all the size in the world. Mm-hmm. So kind of seeing how the Warriors handle and defend, and just kind of what that looks like against some interior threats, some teams with some championship pedigree, some teams that think that they can come out of their respective conferences. How do the Warriors respond to those games? Yeah, just kind of seeing what a step up in class looks like. The Warriors, for as well as they've been playing, have been, I think, pretty intentional about tempering everything. That this is a build to the postseason. That there's other levels and other gears that they have to get to in order to truly contend for a championship. And obviously, they understand what that looks like. So, yeah, huge 3-game stretch. Even though the Knicks are without Brunson tonight, they have been playing. They got a big win in Portland the other night. I think they have Mikal Bridges, certainly a capable scorer on the wing. Karl Anthony Towns, another elite big man that the Warriors are going to see tonight. So stepping up in class and competition is good at this juncture of the season. It's going to give the Warriors a better feel of where they need to tighten up these last 16 games, and also an opportunity to give different lineups, different looks, depending on personnel that the opposing teams have. So you can get as much information as you can on how you match up against some of these players. For the next 16 games, so you have an idea of what the postseason rotations or whatnot are going to look like.
No doubt. I'm 100% with you, Sam, and I really appreciate your time. I look forward to seeing you later tonight at Chase Center, and I really appreciate, again, you coming on and helping our listeners out.
Anytime, Evan. Can't wait for the game tonight, the next 2 after that, and they're all big ones from here on out, right? We've seen how that Western Conference looks. The playoffs are going to be fascinating, and it definitely feels like the Warriors are going to have something to say about them. So I'll see you at Chase, and very much appreciate you having me.
Right on, Sam. Take it easy. All right, that's Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle joining us courtesy of the River Islands guest line. A lot of good stuff from Sam. I mean, you could hear just how tapped in he is. And again, I wanted to bring him on in particular. For those that didn't catch the beginning of the interview, you can use the Rewind app on the Odyssey app. You can go on YouTube and Twitch and rewind as well. But he sat down for 15 minutes, one-on-one with Jimmy Butler. So he got an opportunity that not a lot of people get, especially for someone that I think Jimmy's a pretty private dude. I think he seems like someone that, I don't know if his mercurial is the word, but he's a reserved personality. He's got different interests, as Sam mentioned. I thought it was really cool just to learn a little bit more about Jimmy the guy. In addition to what I think it's just, it's been so much fun to see how simple he makes the game. Like, the way that I'm watching the Warriors right now, it doesn't feel like things are being overthought. And, for example, the last 2 games for, Portland and Sacramento, they won. I've done pre and post game for both of them. And we have a segment called Your Take It to the Bank Prediction, brought to you by Fremont Bank. It's not that I'm Nostradamus, but because the team is playing such simplified basketball, I just think it makes it a lot easier to know what to expect. Last game, I felt like they were going to handle the Kings. I thought they were actually going to have a little bit of trouble against Portland, but that was more so because of how they'd been playing the couple of games before. But I felt like Kaminga was going to be able to step right back in and have a big role. Give me the over on his points. And I'll save my prediction for later tonight for Warriors Live, beginning at 4:30 for the 5:30 tip against the Knicks. But it's not that I'm any smarter as a basketball mind, or people that are watching are any smarter. It's that this team is now predictable in a good way, in a positive way. And I think it's because, like Sam used the word lubricate to talk about the offense. And I think people are probably going to have some fun with that. But it reminds me of, like, Jimmy Butler is an oil change for the Golden State Warriors. That's essentially what he is. He's gotten this team to the point where all right, drain out the old engine, the used engine oil, replace it with some fresh, clean oil, new oil filter, engine lubricating. The performance is going to be awesome. All of these different working parts in your car can be fixed or aided or helped by an oil change. It's not anything that's like everyone's got to get an oil change, however many thousand miles. You got to put work into your car. And sometimes you just need a little more oil, some fresh oil. That's what Jimmy Butler was. I don't think he was anything spectacular, right? But he seems to be the correct piece for this team. Again, as a player, I feel like Kevin Durant's going to go down as a better all-time player than Jimmy Butler. He has been a better player than Jimmy Butler over the course of his career. But for this particular moment, Jimmy was the guy. And I don't know if the Warriors got lucky, if they meant for this to happen all along, even when they were swinging and missing on Paul George and Lauri Markkanen. Everyone that wanted the Warriors to make a trade, go out there and make a move. It's like, yes, I think we all wanted them to do something, but they had to do the right thing. And that's why the timing of this is interesting to me, too, because I don't know if the Warriors knew that Jimmy was going to be able to do this. When they got that oil change on February 6th or February 8th at the deadline, I don't think they knew that this car was going to turn back into a car that it looked like it was a 200,000-mile Ferrari. And he's almost been able to, like in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I don't know if you've seen this movie, Steven. But in the movie, Ferris Bueller and Cameron and Ferris Bueller's girlfriend, they take this car out for a joyride, right? They want to take Cameron's dad's car, and Cameron is worried that the mileage is going to display something that will let his father know that they've taken out the car because it's his baby. So what they do is they try and roll the car in reverse. Like they just put it in reverse, and that way, in their minds, in their high school minds, the mileage is going to dial back to whatever the original number is. And of course it doesn't work because that's not the way that cars work. But in a way, Jimmy Butler has accomplished for the Warriors what Ferris Bueller could not accomplish for his friend Cameron, which is dialing back the miles of a Ferrari. And he has gotten them to the point where, yeah, you could take it out for a little joyride around Chicago. You could take it for a trip around the Midwest. You could take it cross country because it feels like Jimmy Butler has been the oil change that can revert this Ferrari's mileage back to, 100,000 or something like that. It's just, it did not make any sense to me when it happened, but because of how simple the game has been since he's gotten here, granted against some lesser competition, it just feels easy to predict or easier to predict. And that's been another reason that I've really enjoyed watching this team is they play simple basketball. Now, Sam also mentioned something about Jimmy Butler in regards to the younger players, specifically Kaminga, that I want to dig into when we come back here on Warriors this week. Evan Giddings flying solo along with Steven Risotto. And on 95.7 The Game, we'll talk to you after the break. 888-957-9570 is the number if you want to get in the conversation. Big thank you to Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle. More coming up next on your home for Golden State Warriors basketball, 95.7 The Game.
So, how's your research going?
Surprising. After I figured out the top-rated TVs in our price range, I went...
Now back to Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game.
All right, one last segment. If you want to get in on the conversation, 888-957-9570 is the number. Talking about the Golden State Warriors. Evan Giddings flying solo here on a Saturday. Hoping Dan Devone is going to be back with us next Saturday, 9 to noon, every single weekend here on 95.7 The Game. Warriors take on the Knicks at 5:30. Warriors live at 4:30. Tim Roy on the call, of course, tonight. Also an ABC game, another nationally televised stage for the Warriors, who are 13-2 since the deadline, 13-1 with Butler on the floor. They've won their last 11 with number 10. Before I dig into the Kaminga and Moody aspect of this, because I think Moody has been a big part of this, obviously. He's been awesome, and he's been starting for the Warriors, and I think will continue to. Kaminga just came back, had 18 points in 20 minutes against the Kings. Those two players have had me thinking about something for quite some time. Actually, might have even kept me up last night, Pasta. But before we do that, Steven Risotto has been kind enough to put together a game, Steve. I don't know anything about this. I have no clue where you're going. I do not know what this is about. It could be about food. It could be about movies. It could be about Golden State. I don't know. But, Steven, the floor is yours. What do you got?
All right, Evan Giddings. Yeah, no, this is not like, I know you've hyped it up like the last few hours, but it's not as scary as it sounds. But it is going to be Golden State Warriors basketball themed. It's going to be a game of make believe or believe. Okay, so I'm going to give you kind of a narrative.
Not we believe. No.
Okay. That was a while ago, but as you mentioned, some similarities with the we believe. But no, make believe or believe. So I'm going to give you kind of a narrative or an opinion or a take, and then you're going to tell me if it's believable or maybe it's going to be make believe. So I'm going to give you kind of a practice one right here.
A practice one. All right.
So, for example, and those listening could play as well. Coffee is very important for Evan Giddings. What would you say?
I would believe that's correct.
You would believe? Okay.
So I don't know what I would do without coffee, especially when I got in this morning. So, yes, I believe that.
Okay. So that was just a very vague example of what we're going to do. All right. Again, Warriors edition, all Warriors questions. First and foremost, Evan Giddings, the current version of the Golden State Warriors has more of Jimmy Butler's personality rather than Stephen Curry's. Believe or make believe?
God, this is going to be a cop-out. I don't believe it because I actually think that they're one and the same. Like, Butler's personality on the court has clearly been transferred or, I don't know, mimicked by a lot of the teammates. But I think where Butler is selfless on the floor, not to say that Steph isn't, but Steph is clearly a selfless person off the floor. And so I think that's why their personalities they're not as combative as people make them out to be. Like, I think they're complementary both on and off the floor. So does this team resemble more of Jimmy Butler? Perhaps. I think they're making more of the simple plays, but I think that they're both equally selfless, and that is a major ingredient to this group.
I gave you the ding there just because there's no wrong answers in this exercise. Good answer. Number 2, there's somebody that we haven't talked a lot about, and it's the head coach of the Warriors, Steve Kerr. So, Evan, make believe or believe, Steve Kerr deserves a lot of credit for this team coming together.
I believe that. I absolutely believe that. And that's actually been confirmed because Jimmy Butler has said how welcoming this locker room has been, how welcoming someone like Steve Kerr has made it. And he's someone that, if a team succeeds, I understand that usually the head coach, you hear about him when the team stinks. What is he doing? And when the team is playing well, it's all on the players. Like, the head coach probably gets too much credit and too much blame in both of these situations. But yeah, Steve Kerr absolutely, I believe, deserves credit for what is going on right now because they're 13-2. Like, if your head coach is a nitwit, then you're not going to be playing the way that the Warriors have played, I believe.
Makes sense.
Speaking of belief.
Yeah, and some of these I'm like, okay, he's going to say believe, make believe. I got to split it up. I got to make sure that we got a good number of
Oh, you're going to get people pissed at me now?
No. You do that yourself.
That's a good point.
All right. Believe or make believe. If there is an issue with the Warriors, I think they it's been well documented that maybe they turn over the ball a little bit too much. I think the Warriors have mentioned this themselves. A lot of the players have talked about it. Evan, the turnover issue, if there is an issue with the Warriors, is the issue that would cost them games down the stretch if they were to lose some games down the stretch. So that would be the deciding factor between the Warriors being successful in a playoff run and not being successful. Believe or make believe.
You know what? Just like Jimmy Butler, let's keep it simple. I believe that. I think that their carelessness with the basketball is going to be their undoing if it persists, which, by the way, we talked about this earlier, it has. Over the last 4 games, they've turned the ball over an average of 17.5 times. It hasn't bitten them. It almost did against Brooklyn, but it hasn't bitten them against the Nets, the Pistons, the Blazers, and now the Kings. But I can guarantee you that if they turn the ball over 17.5 times per game over the next 3, I think they will lose 2 of them. So that is a number that absolutely has to come down. And it's also because it's led to 86 points off of turnovers, which you cannot give the Knicks, the Bucks, nor the Nuggets. So I believe that.
And also, I've worked with you enough, Evan, to know that nobody values taking care of the baseball more than you. So that is a...
Well, taking care of the baseball is a little bit of an easier
task. Not the basketball. I'm so locked in with baseball all the time. Okay.
Yeah, I hate errors, Steven. Doesn't matter what playing surface we're on.
Taking care of the basketball. All right. Another guy...
Yeah. Are you talking about the fact that I nicknamed Curry and Draymond the turnover twins?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I don't know if I came up with that, but to me it's just... Yeah, they're the turnover twins. At times, they're still great.
I respect you for standing by, and not only standing by it, but repeating it. So good. That's very nice.
But yeah, when they throw the ball into the 3rd row, I think everyone's wondering what the hell you're doing.
No, for sure. All right. Here's another one. And I mentioned how we maybe don't talk about Steve Kerr enough. Another guy that I don't think we've even mentioned today, Buddy Hield. Our guy, Shifano, Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield's kind of heating up a little bit, or he's shown signs of a possible heat up. Believe or make believe, Buddy Hield heating up is just as important as Jonathan Kaminga coming back.
I think that's make believe, but I see where you're going. I mean, to me, Kaminga has got to be a bigger piece to the Warriors than Shivano, but Shivano, a.k.a. Buddy Hield, is someone that, like, if he's making... What is the Bonte Hill record? It's like, if he scores 19-plus points, they don't lose or something. So from that standpoint, yeah, he's important. I just don't think that Buddy Hield's someone that's going to average 19 in the postseason. Like, actually, what he's doing right now, to me, is perfect. I went through these stats earlier, but over the last 15 games, Shivano is averaging 11 points in 22 minutes on 37-ish% three-point shooting. That's perfect because that means he's going to have some 6 for 9s. It means he's going to have some 2 for 9s. But those games where he goes 2 for 9 are not going to kill you, I believe. Especially when Pajemski is back and they're at full strength. Buddy Hield can be a rotation piece. There's no doubt about that. He's in the postseason rotation. But if this team is going to make its hay, I think it's going to be more so with Kaminga than big old Buddy.
Certainly an X factor, Kaminga is, for sure. All right. I did have the Steph Curry 4,000 points. Is that a big enough deal or not? And
make believe.
That make believe, yeah.
Make believe. We went through this. Every time he makes a shot, it's history. That, to me, is the final number is going to be more important than him cracking 4,000. Yeah. Which, by the way, he did 3 years ago.
Of course. And side note, what is the most unbreakable... This is not the game. But since I took that question out, what's the most unbreakable record in sports?
The most unbreakable record in sports... Whatever Steph's three-point mark ends up at, no, that's placating the crowd a little bit. I think probably it's Brett Favre's Iron Man streak.
That's a good one. I was going to say Cal Ripken's Iron Man streak.
Yeah, I think they're one and the same, but to me, physically, football is just a much more demanding sport. And
way more.
While Brett Favre is a POS, He still is on the field every single game. And I think the person that it's second is like 100 games behind him or something. It's either Eli Manning or Phillip Rivers. But I just don't believe that a player is going to play that long, that amount of consecutive starts, and be able to stay healthy. And so if you want to throw Cal Ripken in there, you can do that too. Although, I don't know if this happened with Brett Favre, but I believe that there were particular games for the Baltimore Orioles that Cal Ripken would start to keep his streak intact, and then very quickly would be subbed out, would be pinch hit for, replaced in the field so that he could get rest built in. So it'd be like Steph starting a game and then being taken out 5 minutes in. He technically gets the start, and his consecutive streak remains intact, but let's be honest, that shouldn't count.
Yeah, no, that's a little Bush League if you ask me. All right, 2 more here.
Oh, the YouTube's chiming in along with the text line. We got some good ones here. Jay Lee, Wilt's 100 points. That's
great.
Yeah. That one's gonna be tough. That one's gonna be tough to break. That's definitely a good one.
I know DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. That's a tough one.
Ricky Henderson's 130 stolen base season. Probably never going to happen again, just because the stolen base is not as valued as it once was. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. Don't get me wrong.
A topic for a different day. All right, 2 more. Believe or make believe. Believe or make believe, Evan. The Warriors, because I'm going to preface this by saying a lot of people are talking about Jonathan Kaminga as the missing piece. Everybody's kind of talking in terms of when do we get Jonathan back? When do we get Jonathan back? Now he's back. So, Evan, with the Warriors getting Kaminga back, could they have won the NBA Finals with no Kaminga?
650.
Or can they?
650. Cy Young, 511 wins. That's a good one, too.
That's amazing.
Repeat the question, Steve. I had to think about that for a moment.
The Warriors could win the NBA Finals if Jonathan Kaminga never returned.
Well, technically, we don't know if they can win it with him.
That's very true, but without him. I guess maybe this is more of a chance and percentage thing.
I believe that. Yeah, I do believe that. You know, and it's not that Kaminga is going to be the best player on a championship team, but I believe in the postseason, you need talent. Like, you need dudes. And I think we saw the Warriors before the deadline didn't have enough talent. And Jimmy Butler is a massive talent. And so the fact that Kaminga can come back and add to that talent pool, I think that's huge. You know, obviously they've won a lot of games without him, but I think if they're going to win 4 times out of 7 against some really good teams in the West, and then I believe one of the 2 best teams in the NBA coming out of the East, because I think it's going to be Cleveland or Boston. Yeah, you're going to need JK. And you're going to need him to play well also. So,
yeah. Maybe the question was, could they win it without him?
No.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, final question. Believe or make believe, and you've kind of flirted with talking about this at the beginning of the show.
I am a flirt.
The Warriors will find themselves in the 3 seed by season's end.
Oh, that's make-believe. As much as I would love to believe that the Warriors are going to live happily ever after as the 3 seed in the Western Conference, I'm sorry, I just don't see it. They got 16 games left. So right now, move up not just 3 spots, but to make up 4 games in 16, you need teams to fall off a cliff. Like right now, the Lakers are looking like they're suffering because of injury, but you need Denver to catch an injury. You need Memphis to continue to stay injured because of Jaren Jackson. But I don't see them. I don't see them climbing 3 spots. I think maybe if Houston hits a little bit of a skid, which, by the way, I will wholly admit that I was wrong about their season. Houston is going to pass 43.5 wins, which was their over-under. I think that was that was the team that I felt the strongest about not getting to their over. So I apologize to the Houston Rockets. They have played a very good year of basketball. I think the Warriors might be able to catch them. You know, again, if you can avoid Denver or the Lakers in the first round, I think you got a good opportunity to make some hay in the postseason. Not that they can't beat those teams, but I just wouldn't want that first round series to be against a team that I believe can take a pound of flesh. You know, I don't know how you feel about it, Steve, but are there teams that I don't want to say you fear, because I know that no athlete fears another. At least I think that way. But is there a team that you don't want to see in the first round?
OKC.
Whoa. Well, yeah, that's true. I agree with that. I brought this up yesterday on Steiny Guru. There was literally an article written in ESPN that was, everyone is saying the Thunder aren't contenders. Here's 22 reasons why. And they had 22 reasons why you basically should fear the Oklahoma City Thunder. And they're pretty good. I mean, they just went into Boston, got a big win against them. So, yeah, I hear that.
Did you like that bit?
I like the bit, Steve. I appreciate you bringing a little bit of flair to the show.
Would you ever go on a game show?
No.
You would you would never go on I don't know who you would go on Family Feud with, but Jeopardy.
My family is who.
What about the 95-7 the game? Who would do best at 95-7 the game Family Feud?
So this is the thing. I don't know how many extra interests a lot of these hosts have. If we're just talking sports trivia, Bonte Hill's pretty damn good. Dan Dibley is very top of mind. So part of it too is it's not just about how smart you are. It's to me, the skill in those kinds of games comes down to recall and quick recall. So, for example, we were just talking about Immaculate Grid earlier, and I had a great 9. I was perfect, right, Steve? Well, that took me a long time. If you're asking me, all right, name the most rare player from the Cubs and the Cardinals right off the top of your head, I'm like, I don't know. But you need it immediately. So I don't think I would be very good at a game show. I might end up being, I might have my Stephon Diggs moment on Family Feud, if you know what I'm referencing.
Oh yeah. No, I just figured I'd ask. It's a cool topic, and
just make an ass out of myself.
No, I think you'd do fine.
By the way, shout out to Carter Chickering. I guess he's listening in Cabo from his bachelor's party. We love you, buddy. Wish you were here. Steve's holding it down for you.
Oh my God, he's alive.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've heard from Carter in Cabo, down beneath the border with a lot of fellas, a lot of guys over the weekend in Cabo. All right, while we have a few minutes here, Steve, I want to run this by you. Kaminga's return has had me starting to think about, all right, so Moody's been awesome. I think he's been quietly one of the best role players or others, especially in starting lineups around the NBA. In these 15 games, you look at the plus minuses. I went through these the other day, and he's up there with Derek White, DeAndre Hunter. They're a little bit better, but those are guys that are considered really impactful pieces to teams with legitimate championship aspirations. Moody's been in that category if you look at the plus minus. Kaminga now being back quickly, 18 points, 20 minutes, a firecracker off the bench. I don't know. I think his role or his minutes are going to fluctuate just depending on matchups. Sometimes he's going to get 30 minutes. Sometimes he might get 25. But if he can be a hyper-efficient version of, again, the basketball that he was playing, to Sam Gordon's point, who joined us earlier, before he got hurt, and Kerr's talked about the decision-making that he really loved from J.K. before he got hurt, and that he saw quickly right off the bat against Sacramento. If he can play that kind of basketball, I'm wondering about those two players, because everyone has made, I think, a bit too much of a deal out of the drafts by the Warriors in recent memory. Obviously, the big one, the big miss, number 2 overall, 2020, James Wiseman. Up until this season, whether it's because people think that Kerr hadn't given them enough run, or I just think personally they hadn't shown enough as developmental pieces. Both Moody and Kaminga were drafted at 19 and 18 years old, as especially Kaminga, a very raw prospect. The fact that he's getting to this point now at age 22 doesn't mean to me that he's behind. It just means it's taken a little bit longer than other players. He's 4 years away from his prime. That excites me. If Kaminga, and this builds off your game, if Kaminga can be a reason why the Warriors go deep in the playoffs, and I think he'll have to be, if Moody can be a reason why the Warriors go deep in the playoffs, and I think he'll have to be, he's a starter. Kaminga's right now their 6th man. I'm willing to say I'm almost there. I got to see it happen in the playoffs. But if these two players can do that, they can continue to play at a high level into April and May. I'm willing to forgive James Wiseman. I think I'm willing to forgive that second overall pick. I mean, seriously, if you're telling me that, yes, you miss on the draft that you're supposed to hit on this big-time prospect, and you could have had LaMelo, you could have had Tyrese, you could have had, I don't know, maybe you could have traded up to get I don't know. However you feel about that draft is how you feel. But if you're telling me you hit on 2 future potential cornerstone pieces, different roles, but big pieces of the fabric of your franchise, Kaminga and Moody, a year later, as both lottery picks, essentially, I'm willing to forgive that Wiseman pick, especially if this team proves that it can use those guys to go deep in the playoffs. Because you're not going to hit on every draft. Players get missed on all the time. Like, for example, I don't know if anybody can name the prior 6 picks right before Steph Curry in 2009, but one that gets overlooked, I think, often is the Sacramento Kings taking Tyreek Evans at 4. You know, Johnny Flynn, Ricky Rubio were the 2 point guards taken by the Minnesota Timberwolves who are constantly discussed. But Steph Curry in that draft was not even the number 1 guard from a team that was out here and out west. Like, looking at that draft, number 7, 2009, Blake Griffin, Hasheem Thabeet, James Harden, and then Tyreek Evans, Ricky Rubio, Johnny Flynn, Steph Curry. Hasheem Thabeet's a miss. Reminds me a lot of Wiseman, honestly. But Tyreek Evans, he had a great rookie season. And then, as Steiny likes to say, everyone realized that he couldn't go left. And his career kind of fell apart. But the Kings missed on Curry just as much as the Minnesota Timberwolves missed twice on Steph Curry. The Warriors missed on James Wiseman. The difference is, in those following drafts, the Timberwolves weren't able to get impact players. The Sacramento Kings were taking the Jimmer Fredetts or other players that were misses. The Warriors, a year later, after taking James Wiseman, if you're telling me that you hit on 2 lotto guys, and I'll throw Moody in there, and they can be impactful parts of a team that can make a deep postseason run, yeah, I'm willing to forgive the bust. I don't know how you feel about that, Steve.
Well, credit to their player development, too. I mean, we were going into this year with Steve Kerr saying that we were going to run with a 12-man rotation. Everybody's going to be in the mix. And then there were certain guys that kind of elevated themselves to be bigger parts of that. And, you know, even before the trade, Quentin Post kind of burst onto the scene, and now he's that flex 5 that everybody's kind of always wanted. And the Warriors feel like they have that in him. And what everybody says about Moses Moody is that he's the most mature. How old is he? 22?
Moody? Yeah.
Moody.
Yeah, he is.
He's the most mature 22-year-old there is. And Kaminga, everybody says that he's the most athletic on this team, and you could make that argument, and I think it would be a pretty good argument. So, I mean, and what they combined for the 2 of them, Kaminga and Moody, combined for 35 points on Thursday night?
Yeah, I mean, someone like Kaminga obviously has a higher potential. I don't know, it's some people say superstardom or stardom. I just think he's got a higher ceiling than Moody. But if you're telling me you hit on 2 of 3 picks, I know that you missed on the one that was quote-unquote obvious because it's the second overall one. But like I'm with Harry on our YouTube chat powered by First North Cal Credit Union. Like you give me that 10 times out of 10. 2 out of 3 draft picks, impactful players, good players. Well, one of them may not be one that carries your franchise. I don't know, maybe Kaminga has that potential, some believe. But yeah, like sign me up for that. Every single time.
Well, it's very hard to hit in the draft. In any sport, it's very hard to hit in the draft. And once you start going past a certain round and a certain number, in the first round even, and you start, you know, drafting based on need and drafting based on your system and drafting based on who you think could fit well with the current personnel you have. And I think that they did a really good job at these 2 guys. And I do agree with you that it would wipe out, you know, whatever grievances people have with the James Wiseman pick. So I agree.
Yeah, if I had to sacrifice James Wiseman to get the best out of Jonathan Kaminga and Moses Moody, so be it. You heard it here first on 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings said. And that will be, well, I didn't mean for it to be the final note, but I just been thinking about it. It's like, if those 2 guys are really dudes for you, Yeah, I can forgive Wiseman, which was something that we couldn't say, I think, as recent as 3 or 4 months ago. Like, you're in this situation. You don't have a future because you missed on Wiseman. You might have missed on Kaminga. You might have missed on Moody. Well, to your point, Steven, the development, along with, I do think, the work that those players have put in, to their credit. I mean, they've made this happen so far, and I think they'll continue to get better. That means that they were worth it. They were worth the time spent, invested, and I think the money, too. Moody obviously got a contract that looks very team-friendly right now, and I think that Jonathan Kaminga is going to get paid this summer by the Warriors. The question is how much, and that'll be a topic of conversation for later. But big thank you to everybody that has tuned in here today to a solo edition of Warriors This Week. Holding it down for my guy Dan Devone, Steven Risotto, a massive help as well, all across the board here from 9 to noon. We are here every single Saturday on Warriors This Week on 95.7 The Game. Big thank you to Sam Gordon, who joined us on the River Islands guest line from the San Francisco Chronicle, helping us get set for the Knicks, 5:30 tonight. Tim Roy, Tom Tolbert on the call. Warriors Live will begin at 4:30, as always, live from Splash at Thrive City. If you're out there grabbing some food before the game, grabbing a pop, stop by, say what's up. I'll be out there shaking hands and kissing babies or whatever people do nowadays outside of Chase Center, because everything is rolling for the Warriors. They've won 13 of 15, 11 in a row with Jimmy Butler on the floor. And we'll talk to you later. All right, here on 95.7 The Game. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Spring into action at Valvoline Instant Oil Change.